This is Baekwoo. He heard voices in his head, as if he were some kind of monster. He saw everyone else as monsters, too. When someone touched him on the shoulder, Baek grabbed his arm, pulled out a knife, and nearly sent the guy straight into a coffin. His hand was trembling, like those war veterans whose senses had become extremely sharp. When you live in a chaotic world, everything becomes a threat. For decades, he was trapped on the planet of monsters, a place where no one survives for more than a day. And no, your eyes aren't deceiving you. He's here too. But Baek was cold. With energy flowing through his hands, he simply swung his knife, while his friend complained. Then one day the system appeared, and he was sent back to Earth. Lying in his bed, he couldn't believe it. He had been trapped in that chaotic world for decades. I wouldn't even have survived half an hour there. He picked up his phone and saw a call from Jung. Jung was complaining in his ear while he tried to remember who this girl was. While he was on the planet of monsters, only a few days had passed back on Earth. But now, he's no longer an ordinary student. He's a genius with decades of battle experience. Now back in the modern world, he met up with his friend. She waved at him from the table, and was angry because he had promised to be a guest on her live stream. In this world, live streaming makes people famous while they explore dungeons. And now you know why, on his way back, he almost killed a guy who simply touched his shoulder. Because that planet came back with him. Now, this war genius wants to do things the right way. When he got home, he ended up stepping inside a machine. A system message welcomes him, and he appears in what seems to be the game's tutorial. Seeing his reflection, he realizes he's in the waiting room of the in-game laboratory. But he's frustrated, as he wanted to go back to hell, not this peaceful place. The system asks him to confirm his appearance, and he decides to go along with the tutorial for now. First, he goes into the settings, turning off the combat assist since he's already experienced. With that, the game moves on to skill configuration, asking him to choose an element. Then, we are shown the skill tree which is used to strengthen the character. The entire element structure is called a build, and there are even professional researchers. He then remembers the build that made him a superhuman, and selects it without hesitation. Suddenly, a loudspeaker turns on, and a voice calls him. Test subject number 48. The voice announces it's been a week since the last experiment, leaving him silent. He realizes the game conveniently skips the awakening process, which is torture. After all, he thinks no one in their right mind would want to go through that in a game. The voice then tells him to enter the next room to begin the next experiment. But as he looks inside, he finds a giant combat robot waiting for him. He recognizes the machine, an eternal robot, created to eliminate the project's test subjects. And with that, the first tutorial mission appears, telling him to defeat the giant robot. But he notices something, realizing that this is one of the earliest models of the machine. At that moment, a painful memory returns, of a boy begging him to save him. He remembers the massacre that robot caused, killing everyone in front of him. With its red eye glowing, the machine prepares to attack. Then the Eternal charges at him, ready to crush him without mercy. But he stands still, thinking the situation here is the same as in that hell. With his eyes glowing gold, he gets angry at the researcher's cruelty. The Eternal then unleashes a powerful blow, aiming directly at the protagonist's face. However, with incredible speed, he dodges the blow without any difficulty. The machine tries to grab him with its other arm, continuing its relentless attack. But he dodges once more, getting dangerously close to the robot's body. He places a hand on the machine, thinking the final version is strong. But this one is weak. And with a single blow, he blows up the robot's head, showing his power. From the impact, robot parts fly everywhere, scattering across the room's floor. Then, the voice on the loudspeaker says the experiment is over, and that he was amazing. The tutorial mission is successfully completed, and the voice comments on his aptitude for skills. But just as they were about to start the next test, a strange energy begins to surround the protagonist. Suddenly, an alarm blares, and the voice screams in despair about a government invasion. Just then, a woman takes control of the system with a message for all the victims. She tells everyone to use their strength and get out of there, and he recognizes that voice. With that, the second tutorial mission appears, telling him to escape the laboratory. A huge explosion occurs, and he realizes the first thing to do is get out. He runs through the destroyed hallway, wondering how many explosions have already happened. As he turns the corner, he finds the place in flames and comes face to face with a wounded soldier. The soldier identifies him as a victim and says that since he made it this far, he must want to escape. To help him, the soldier activates a device, saying he can lend a hand with that. With that, a wall opens up, revealing an armory, and he tells him to take whatever he wants. He also hands him a flare, telling him to use it to be rescued once he gets out. Right after the soldier's hand drops, and Bayek wonders if he just died. He stands silent for a moment, staring at the arsenal of weapons before him, but seeing the destroyed robot, he remembers it's just a game, and this must be a cut scene. Ignoring the firearms, he decides to grab a scythe with a very sinister chain. As he holds the weapon, he feels a strange energy as souls surround him again. The scene cuts to a girl who sighs at having to play the country's most famous game. This is Kang Soil, a professional streamer, who complains that her hipster pride is wounded. In the chat, people are making fun of her, but she defends herself, saying it was a dare they chose. She says a promise is a promise, and that she's never broken one made to her viewers. But the chat doesn't let it go, and they quickly bring up the many times she promised and didn't deliver. To change the subject, she announces she's starting the challenge to beat Reverse Planet. Once in the game, she saves her character's appearance and chooses the fire element. Then she gets to the combat assist settings, which is at 50%, but the chat starts flooding, asking her to set it to 0 and beat the tutorial without help. She remembers her research and knows the chance of beating it without help is practically 0. She thinks she's good at the game, but playing without assistance is nearly impossible to pull off. But just as she was about to refuse, a mission pops up with a huge cash reward for her. With her eyes sparkling, she changes her mind instantly, saying a real streamer would accept. So she announces she'll play without assist, and excitedly runs to start the challenge. Now in front of a gate, she asks the chat if they're sure about this idea. The result is a disaster. She was defeated in 2 minutes, and cries, complaining about the unfairness. In the chat, people agree, but they also make fun of her failure against the robot. Back at the start, she says she just needs to escape now, but a system window pops up. The second mission begins, and the game starts an automatic search for a party for her. She wonders if beating it with a party still counts, but the chat accuses her of wanting to get carried. However, the party search fails, leaving her confused since the game is so popular. But then the chat explains she can only play with others who also turned off combat assist. Everyone laughs at her, because now she's the one who'll have to carry the team. Just as she's about to cancel the mission, the system finds a party and pulls her into the game. She's teleported in, screaming that she's screwed, but suddenly stops when she sees something ahead. She arrives at the location and finds a bunch of destroyed robots on the ground. Completely in shock, she tells the chat that the situation here is serious and no joke. And the weirdest part is, she realizes he didn't even use a weapon to do all this damage. At this, she gets super excited, thinking she's found the perfect person to carry her. The scene cuts and shows a bloody knife, dripping slowly onto the dark floor. It's our protagonist, standing over a body, surrounded by the robot carcasses. With a sinister purple glow in his eyes, he slowly turns his head towards her. The girl calls out carefully, saying "Excuse me" to the person in the hallway. But in the blink of an eye, he appears and puts the knife right to her neck. Covered in blood, he stares at her up close, making the situation very tense. She's in shock with the blade so close to her face, not knowing how to react. Cowering, she begs him to save her, and he apologizes, saying he was mistaken. She recognizes him by his outfit and asks to go with him, since they're in the same party. Then, she introduces herself as the streamer Kong Soil and asks if she can record him. She assures him that his face is hidden, but he suddenly stops walking. She wonders why he stopped so suddenly, getting very confused by his reaction. Suddenly, several soldiers appear in the hallway, shouting that they don't need to capture him alive. And without a second thought, they open fire on the pair without mercy. The streamer throws herself to the ground in despair, complaining about the tutorial's absurd difficulty. At that, she worries about the guy who was going to carry her and asks if he's okay in the middle of the shootout. But he's dodging every bullet in midair, as if it were nothing at all. Then, he uses his weapon's chain to swing and advance on the soldiers. He becomes a total blur, taking everyone down and leaving the girl and the chat in shock. Hiding, she asks the chat if this is normal, because it seems completely insane. She questions what kind of skill he's using, since even the color of his eyes has changed. A viewer then explains that it's the perfect being skill, leaving her even more confused. She remembers that this is a useless skill that prevents the use of other abilities. That's when they explain the perfect being ability, one of the game's elements. It greatly increases physical stats, but in return, it prevents you from using any other skills. And because of this huge disadvantage, it's known as the worst skill in the game. The streamer finds it very strange that someone would choose a build like that, as it makes no sense. She thinks it might be a strategy to focus only on stats, but he's still at level 1. But then, how can he pull off those moves? Dodging everything like that, completely confused, she wonders about the true identity of that mysterious player. In the blink of an eye, he finishes off another soldier with a brutal and merciless blow. And just like that, he clears the hallway, leaving a trail of bodies behind him. However, the dark voices whisper to him, saying that it's still not enough. They surround him and demand a much crueler revenge, as they are not satisfied. Suddenly, a sniper appears at the end of the hallway, preparing to shoot him. The sniper's crosshairs lock onto the target, ready to take the final shot and end it all. Soil senses the danger and screams, trying to warn him that he's about to be hit. But in a swift move, he pulls her and uses her as a shield, blocking the shots. The sniper doesn't stop and keeps firing, with bullets ricocheting all over the hallway. Seeing he missed the shot, the sniper gets angry, while the streamer is on the ground. But using the gun she picked up, she fights back and lands a perfect headshot on the soldier. She lies on the floor, relieved, and the chat accuses her of stealing the main character's kill. He then approaches and asks her how it felt to shoot the guy. With a victorious smile, she boasts that at least she managed to be useful. Suddenly, a memory surfaces of a little girl happily calling his name. It's a flashback to his past, with the other prisoners from that horrible place. Back in the present, she calls out to him, but he just stares at her with a cold, distant look. She gets nervous and asks if he's angry, but he coldly replies that he isn't. He says she was a great help, and the chat goes wild over his kindness. All excited, she asks if they can do the tutorial together, and he simply agrees. As they walk, he says his name is Baek Woo-hyun, surprising the girl. She then asks if it's true he chose the perfect being skill, and he confirms it. Curious, she wants to know how he dodges bullets, but he says he doesn't like games. He suddenly stops walking, and she confusedly asks the reason for the unexpected pause. Baek warns that there are 2 ethanol robots about 20 meters ahead of them. She's shocked, as he doesn't have any detection skills to know that. But right after, 2 robots appear in the hallway, proving he was right. He heads towards them, saying he used to like playing in the game's Coliseum. With a dark aura, he charges forward and unleashes a powerful blow on one of the robots. The blow lands squarely, causing an explosion and completely destroying the machine. He continues the fight, saying he used to play intensely when he was in the Coliseum. With a look full of confidence, he reveals that he even managed to make it into the rankings. And with one more blow, he finishes off the last robot, clearing the path easily. The chat goes crazy, and she asks if being a Coliseum ranker is that big of a deal. Then it's explained that back then, these rankers became pro players like the famous Battler. She's in shock, as Battler is the most famous professional player, Real Frost. Baek then calls for her to continue, and she follows him, all excited about the discovery. They reach the end of the hallway where a masked man awaits, saying they dragged themselves all the way there. The man threatens them, saying that this place will be their grave with a malicious smile. It's the tutorial boss, the captain of the guard, who warns them they'll soon meet their colleagues. Upon hearing that, Baek's expression changes completely, filled with rage and a thirst for revenge. He sees the souls of his dead friends emerging and writhing on the ground in agony. The voices whisper for him to hurry up and kill that bastard who eliminated them. The captain then charges at them, yelling that they won't leave this place alive. Soil gets into position to help and starts shooting to provide cover for Baek. But the bullets ricochet off the boss, who uses some kind of barrier to protect himself. She yells to him that she'll provide support, but Baek just stares at her with an empty gaze. He thinks that, even if it's a game, he will fight that man with everything he's got. With a blow, he hits the captain, who immediately feels the force of the impact. The collision creates a powerful shockwave, pushing the boss back with full force. The streamer is completely confused, not understanding what just happened. The captain gets up furious, calling the protagonist a disgusting and despicable insect. And with his hands enveloped in an icy aura, he charges at Baek with everything he has. He easily dodges the ice attack, which shatters the floor where he was standing. The captain gets furious and asks how long he can keep dodging his attacks. Then, he launches a spinning ice attack, which rushes full speed towards Baek. The blow sends him flying, throwing him with full force against the hallway wall. But he gets up and clenches his fist, ready to counter the enemy's attack with all his might. With a direct punch, he lands a solid hit on the captain's face, who feels the impact. The boss recoils from the force of the blow, while Baek stares him down with a serious expression. Suddenly, the voices of the souls whisper, telling him not to unleash his full power. They say the captain can't die easily, and ask him to tear the man to pieces. Without understanding a thing, the captain wonders how a mere test subject has so much power. Baek then looks at his hands and coldly replies, saying it was thanks to him. And with a final blow, blood splatters everywhere, ending the fight for good. The system confirms the victory, and Soil is speechless, not knowing what's going on. Soil celebrates that they finally defeated the boss, while Baek remains over the body. He then prepares to deliver the final blow, but the streamer calls for them to leave. He agrees and turns to leave, leaving the captain's body behind on the floor. As they go through the door, Soil celebrates in relief that they finally escape. At that, the system confirms their success, and she asks if he'll continue the main story. But he says no, telling her that's enough for today, and he's stopping there. She then asks him to wait a bit, as she has a proposal to make, making him curious. The streamer ends the live stream, celebrating with the chat that the challenge was a success. Afterwards, she turns to him and thanks him, and he asks what the proposal is. With a hopeful look, she asks if he'd like to appear regularly on her streams. He's a bit confused, and she explains that she'll focus on the main quests and PvP. The girl insists, saying she can work around his schedule and would even pay him. But he turns down the offer, and she can tell from his face there's no point in insisting. She then asks if she can at least add him as a friend, and he ends up agreeing. Before leaving, she says goodbye and that it was fun playing, and then logs out of the game. Alone again, he thinks that he's finally finished that game's tutorial. But a doubt arises, and he wonders why he hasn't returned to that side yet. Meanwhile, somewhere else, someone is typing quickly on a computer, posting about the incident. At that moment, Beck had no idea of the commotion his gameplay would cause on the internet. And on top of that, an anonymous donation appears with a sinister message, asking what it's like to be back in reality. The scene changes to the headquarters of Planet Earth, the company that created the game. Inside, the entire team was in the middle of a crisis because of one player. One of the employees reviews the gameplay, unable to believe what he's seeing again. They discuss how the guy defeated a boss with no weapons and no auto-aim. Worried, the boss asks if they're sure it's not a hack. But the technician states they've reviewed everything and found no modifications to the program. He explains that he's seen all kinds of hackers, from those who walk through walls. However, he's never seen movement so absurd and precise like that. The young man then shouts that this level of control is impossible to replicate, even with cheats. The boss then raises the possibility that it might be a new, unknown type of hack. In any case, he decides they need to verify this situation as soon as possible. The scene cuts to Woo Hyun, who's talking with Naeon at a coffee shop. He asks, somewhat surprised, if the online communities are buzzing because of him. Super excited, she confirms that the internet is in total chaos because of his play. Naeon shows him that now everyone is treating his achievement as a confirmed hack. Naeon says she was shocked when she saw the video, and Woo Hyun comments that it was lucky she recognized him. She says she knew he was good but not that good, and he understands why he got the message. Curious, she asks what message he's talking about, but he seems a bit hesitant. But then it clicks, and she shouts, asking if the game company contacted him. In shock, she asks if they want to verify if he's using a hack, and he simply confirms. He then explains that the invitation was passed on by the streamer, who broadcasted his match. Naeon worries about the attention this will generate, and asks if he's going to accept the challenge. But Woo Hyun thinks this is his only chance to talk to the game developers, so he finally confirms that he'll accept, making his friend super excited about the decision. She says it's good for clearing his name, but he says he doesn't really care about that. Naeon insists that his fighting style is unique, and it would be impossible not to recognize him. She explains that even pros are found out by their habits, leaving him thoughtful. Sitting down, relieved, she says she's happy he accepted, as it would spare the streamer. He gets confused, since he doesn't see a connection between him and the girl, but she seems impatient. She explains that the haters would attack him first, but they would soon turn their target to the streamer. Thinking about the streamer, Woo-hyun stares at his cup and finally makes an important decision. The scene changes to Kang Soil, who receives his message and celebrates, super relieved. She's already imagining that her viewer count will explode with this event. In front of the computer, she starts preparing the announcement, telling everyone to get ready. With that, the official announcement for the stream to clear up the hack controversy is published. Days pass, and the moment of truth finally arrives in the game Reverse Plan. Woo-hyun's character appears, and the streamer Soil greets him, all excited. She runs up to him, apologizing for all the trouble, but he says he doesn't mind. He then asks if she also suspects he's using some kind of cheat, but Soil denies it, saying she saw the madness in his eyes, and that couldn't be a lie. He finds her answer curious, and she tells them to start the stream already. With a smile and a wave, Soil starts the live stream, welcoming everyone. He's surprised by the audience size, and announces that Woo-hyun is there to settle the controversy. With all the calm in the world, Baek Woo-hyun formally introduces himself to all the viewers. Soil asks for good manners in the chat, and asks his opinion on the controversy before they begin. He says he thinks it's absurd that this is even a controversy, leaving the chat divided. Soil then announces they have a special guest for today's verification. At that moment, a man emerges from a blue light, suddenly appearing in front of the two. He finds himself as Park Ji-hyun, the head of operations for the game company. Woo-hyun realizes the guy might know something, and plans to question him after the test. Then, the streamer thanks him for being there, and politely introduces Woo-hyun. The leader analyzes the player, thinking that on the outside, he doesn't look like anything special. With that, the man says he will guide them to the official verification area. They are taken to a personal training room, leaving Soil impressed. The GM explains they will observe his battles, and Woo-hyun notes that he's never been here before. He asks if the player agrees to the terms, and he accepts without hesitation. Then, the man approaches a large metal door, preparing for the test. The door opens slowly, revealing what awaited the protagonist inside. From inside, a large training robot with red eyes emerges. The leader announces they'll start with the intermediate robot, and Woo-hyun focuses for the fight. A dark memory haunts him, with dark hands grabbing him and crying out for revenge. The leader watches on his tablet, thinking with a smile that now they're gonna kill each other. But suddenly, a loud noise startles him, leaving the man completely confused. He turns around and sees no one there anymore, not understanding where the player went. Startled, he looks at the tablet again, repeating the words, "Kill each other," over and over. The screen starts to shake violently, almost cracking from the intensity of the scene. The device shatters in his hands, as he stands frozen by what he's seeing. Engulfed in a sinister aura, Woo-hyun simply annihilates the robot with his bare hands. Seeing that, the leader realizes it wasn't a hack, but a power on another level. Woo-hyun steps on the robot's wreckage, showing the fight was already over. Coldly, he informs the leader that the first test is over, leaving the man stunned. The leader confirms there was no hack, but thinks the fight was too quick. He then asks Woo-hyun to fight in a specific way, and the young man accepts on the spot. We're told the test would prove he isn't using an auto-combat hack. Then, the GM asks him to use a chain scythe to defeat 3 robots at once. The man thinks the conditions are very unfair, making victory nearly impossible. Without warning, 3 new training robots appear, surrounding our protagonist. But even at a clear disadvantage, Woo-hyun shows no sign that he's going to lose. He then spins the chain at an absurd speed, rushing straight at them. With an agile move, he dodges a robot's attack while preparing his strike. Sliding across the floor, he uses the chain to propel himself and destabilize the targets. In a second, he traps one of the robots with the chain, using it as a weapon. His eyes gleam with pure concentration, calculating every move for the final blow. And in the blink of an eye, all 3 robots are destroyed with no chance to react. Super excited, Soil shouts that she knew his chain moved as if it were alive. But the leader ignores her, thinking they already have enough data for the verification. Still, he's curious if the player could defeat an advanced-level robot. With a smirk, he decides he'll finally push the test to its limit. Just then, a new door opens, releasing dense smoke throughout the arena. And in the darkness, two red, menacing eyes light up, staring at the protagonist. A new robot, with a more human-like appearance, emerges, walking slowly through the mist. The GM then announces the final test will be against the advanced robot, Model Leadville. Woo Hyun is in shock, and his eye glows as he recognizes the machine's name. Now the hero and the robot face off in a tense silence before the battle begins. Suddenly, a terrible vision of a massacre flashes through our protagonist's mind. The robot, Leadville, then gives a bizarre and frightening smile, as if enjoying the situation. With hatred in his eyes, Woo Hyun unleashes his aura, showing this fight is going to be serious. In the blink of an eye, the machine lunges forward, delivering a high-speed blow. He barely manages to dodge, getting just a cut on his face and smiling at the challenge. He clenches his fist tightly, preparing to counter the robot's attack. Without wasting a moment, he counterattacks with a powerful blow, hitting the machine dead on. The exchange of blows is so intense that they destroy the battle arena's walls. He realizes her power is unmatched, and a single blow could be fatal. But to make matters worse, the robot's armor was too tough for him. His attacks didn't even leave a scratch, showing the difference in their levels. Seeing an opening, the machine advances once more, giving him no time to think. So he decides he'll just keep attacking relentlessly until a blow lands. Watching from afar, Soil and the leader grow tense at the brutality of the fight. The man can't believe he's managing to fight on equal terms with the robot. Gradually, the protagonist starts to dominate the fight, turning the tables in his favor. With that, the leader decides he's seen enough and ends the test. Suddenly, the robot vanishes in a blue light, leaving Woo Hyun completely confused. The GM explains he removed the machine, as they had already collected enough data. He then confirms there was no hack, proving Woo Hyun's skill is real. Excited, Soil celebrates that they've proven he wasn't a hacker, ending the suspicions. She then reiterates to the audience that his skill is so incredible it looks like a hack. With that, she ends the stream, which peaked at over 100,000 viewers. The leader thanks them both for their participation, but Woo Hyun replies it was no big deal. Impressed by his humility, the GM prepares to leave, but is stopped by him. Woo Hyun says he has an important question to ask, making the man very curious. He then asks if there's a bug in the game that prevents someone from logging out, but the leader denies it, saying he's never heard of such a serious error. The man says goodbye and vanishes in a blue light, leaving the two players alone in the arena. Soil thanks him and offers to split the stream's earnings, and he agrees to let her contact him. She thinks it would be a waste to let him go, but he senses she wants to say something. But she changes her mind, says goodbye, and vanishes too, promising to find him later. The scene then changes, with Nayeon calling him to try out PvP mode. It's explained to us that PvP, or player versus player, is a pillar of the game. He asks if that's why she called him, and she pulls him along, excited to fight. Nayeon insists that PvP is the heart of the game, and that he shouldn't give up so easily. But Woo Hyun thinks the story mode reminds him of his world, while PvP has new things to offer. She then starts by explaining the duel, which is a 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 battle. Next, she shows him conflict mode with 5-on-5 team battles. And finally survival, a battle royale where the last one standing is the ultimate winner. She suggests a team battle and offers to help with his build, but he refuses. He thinks he already knows a perfect build, the same one that made him famous in the other world. With that, he starts setting up his skills, while Nayeon gets ready for the match. He decides the starting point should be the military base, a very dangerous location. Nayeon gets super excited and asks to record the match, and he ends up agreeing. Overjoyed, she presses the button to start the match without wasting any more time. The system then confirms the start at the military base with a 60-second countdown. She waves goodbye to him, hoping they'll both be alive at the end of it all. The scene shifts to the players spawning on the map, preparing for the big battle. Elsewhere, a random player complains that the hallway loot is crap. The player decides he needs to get out of there fast, but unseen by him, Woo Hyun emerges from the shadows. Then, the military base descends into utter chaos with explosions and gunfire everywhere. That's when the kill feed goes crazy, showing Woo Hyun eliminating several players. She's left completely speechless, wondering what the hell Woo Hyun is up to. A player is caught by surprise, attacked from behind with no chance to react. With a clean strike, Woo Hyun takes him down and realizes he's cleared the entire area. He remembers how he used to take down multiple enemies at once in the other world. Thinking the killing is over, he gets ready to leave, but something catches his attention. Suddenly, he gets a desperate voice message from Naeon, asking for help. He opens the map and sees she's on the other side of the block, far from him. Without wasting time, he asks for her location, and she says she's on the 3rd floor rooftop. She warns him to be careful, as there are battles happening on every floor of the building. Running at full speed, he rushes past other players who shout warnings about him. One of the guys is shocked by his speed, while the other prepares a fire attack. But the protagonist dodges an attack using his gauntlet to block the blade. With a quick move, he grabs the enemy's arm and neutralizes the firepower. Then, he finishes the guy off with a clean hit, leaving his partner in shock. The remaining player gets furious and unleashes a dark aura, revealing his power. With a cry of hatred, he launches a devastating attack toward Woo Hyun. But Woo Hyun leaps over the power, dodging the attack with incredible agility. The player is enraged to see his strongest attack fail miserably. Without giving him time to breathe, the protagonist charges forward and cuts the enemy with his knife. With a cold look, he confirms another kill, clearing the path to the building. He keeps running at high speed, ignoring the bodies he leaves behind. And along the way, he even manages to take out another enemy with a precise shot. Another player tries his luck, but is easily taken down from behind. He finally reaches the building and notifies Naeon, who offers to provide support. But he asks her to wait for now, as he prepares to enter the building. Carefully, he listens at the door, trying to sense the enemies inside. He can sense at least 5 players waiting for him in the dark room. So he opens the door and goes in, but a guy was already hiding there for an ambush. The enemy smirks, getting ready to plunge the knife into our protagonist's back. But in a split second, Woo Hyun grabs his wrist, stopping the blow mid-air. The guy is in total shock, unable to believe his surprise attack was blocked. With a swift blow, he turns the tables and strikes the enemy from behind, taking him out. He drops the player's body, thinking he needs to hurry to save Naeon. Without wasting a second, he runs up the stairs, leaving a trail of enemies in his wake. And with that, the kill feed shows him eliminating 4 more players in a row. Seeing the notifications from outside, Naeon is speechless at the carnage. She realizes that Baek Woo Hyun is just farming enemies without any difficulty. But suddenly, she senses a presence right behind her, putting her on high alert. It was Woo Hyun, who appears out of nowhere and startles her, using a speed skill. He grabs her chainsaw, and she complains that he nearly gave her a heart attack. She says she didn't even see him coming, and he wonders if she really needed help. Naeon asks if he cleared the building, and he questions the bizarre weapon she picked up. Excited, she says she'll carry the rest of the game now, making the guy laugh at the situation. With the game over, the results show their victory, with Woo Hyun getting 25 kills. Back in the lobby, they realize they've hit a 10-win streak and decide to stop there. She then stares at him, thinking her friend was actually a gaming monster. Excited, the streamer Soil asks him to wait a few days, promising a streaming offer. But he insists he's not interested, as he doesn't even plan on doing the main quests. Still, she asks him to think about it, and says goodbye, disappearing in a blue light. Alone, Woo Hyun is frustrated for not finding any clues, even in PvP mode. The scene then shifts to the real world, showing the city in the dead of night. In her room, the streamer Soil was lying in bed, looking at her phone, all excited. She was browsing the community forums, which were blowing up with posts about the stream. Overjoyed, she rolled around in bed celebrating, because she knew she'd hit the jackpot. She remembers the peak viewership, unable to believe it surpassed 100,000 viewers. Because of this, she feels regretful, as she wanted to keep streaming with Woo Hyun. But then she recalls how firm he was in saying he had no interest in becoming a streamer. So she decides the first step is to settle the payment for the stream with him. But upon checking the amount they earned, her eyes go wide in complete shock. The next day, the scene cuts to Woo Hyun, who is meeting Naeon at a coffee shop. She then shows him a streamer project on her laptop, leaving the guy totally confused. Nayeon shows the presentation she made to convince him, but he's not impressed at all. He remembers her saying he could just play alone, without needing to interact with anyone. So she proposes a different format, a type of variety and observation show. It's explained that it would be a show where a cast watches and comments on his gameplay. With that, she says he would only need to play while she would handle all the talking. She even suggests that, if needed, they could bring in a professional commentator to help. Nayeon offers to split the profits equally, but he keeps saying he's not interested. Then she remembers he must have already received the payment from Soil, and he checks his phone. He looks for the email he had received earlier, but hadn't read yet. The message showed a payment of 6.6 million won, along with an attached donation. Nayeon's jaw drops at the amount of money, but Woo Hyun focuses on the donation message. Upon reading the content, the guy freezes, as if he'd seen a ghost. The messages were from a viewer who knew about him coming back from that place. He realizes the viewer not only knows about his past, but their nickname is also a clue. Shocked, he stands up abruptly, wondering who could know his secret. Desperate, he asks her to track the donor, but she explains it's against the rules. He then realizes he can only communicate with the anonymous person during streams and makes a decision. Firmly, he confirms he will become a streamer, leaving Nayeon in disbelief. But to seal the deal, Woo Hyun says he has just one condition for her to meet. Friday night arrives, a time of leisure for the people in the city. But for the hardcore gamers, it's time to gather in front of their computers. The game's community was buzzing, everyone waiting for Superman's stream. The scene then shifts to the virtual studio, 5 minutes before the live stream is set to begin. Nayeon seemed nervous, but her partner tries to calm her down, saying they've prepared well. He introduces himself as Cha Song-cheol, a professional commentator for the game Reverse Planet. The young man remarks that he didn't expect anyone other than Soil to successfully recruit Superman. Suddenly, the on-air sign lights up, indicating the long-awaited stream has begun. With a smile, Nayeon and Song-cheol introduce themselves to all the viewers of the stream. She gets a little awkward seeing the audience is upset about not seeing the protagonist, but then she reveals that Superman was already logged in and waiting inside the game. It's explained that the format will be observational, with them commentating on the hero's gameplay. Nayeon then asks if everyone is ready to finally watch the match. She sends a message to Woo Hyun, giving him the green light to start the game. With that, a mysterious voice comes through a radio, talking about an interdimensional agency. The voice on the radio explains that the mission is to rescue survivors so they can escape the forest. Then, a mission screen appears, telling him to join the interdimensional agency. He looks at the forest and realizes the scenery is identical to that of his dark past. A memory haunts him, showing how he could only run away in that other world. But with a determined look, he decides that this time will be very different. Suddenly, an enemy spots him and fires a flare to reveal his position. Following that, several masked guards appear, surrounding the area to capture him. They receive the order to attack him from 3 directions, preparing a fatal ambush. Without hesitation, the enemies jump from the trees, surrounding Woo Hyun from all sides. His eyes gleam with hatred, and he swears he'll finish them all right now. A desire for vengeance consumes him, and he charges forward with a killing rage. The guards waste no time and start firing everything they have at the hero. But with incredible skill, he uses his chain to deflect all the bullets. One of the bullets ricochets and hits a guard's weapon, who is left in shock. The bullet then hits a grenade, causing an explosion that eliminates the enemy. The guards call him a fool for coming alone, rushing him with all their might. But he spins in the air with agility, snaring 2 enemies at once with his chain. The chain tightens with force, trapping the guards and leaving them with no escape. With that, he pulls with all his strength, slamming their heads against each other in midair. Without missing a beat, the hero starts spinning the chain at an absurd speed. He then hurls them with full force into the ground, creating a small crater. The impact is brutal, leaving the enemies severely injured and spitting blood on the ground. Seizing the opportunity, he moves in and finishes off the other guards still standing. With a focused gaze, he listens to the remaining enemies searching for him, ready for the challenge. To protect his identity, the stream activates a protocol masking his face. In the studio, the commentators are in shock, as they've never seen a playstyle like this. Xiangqiu gets desperate, thinking it's insane for him to lure enemies without any strategy. Just then, a donation pops up on screen, questioning if his ability has no cooldown. When asked about it, the commentator states with certainty that it's not a cheat. He explains that his build looks like a cheat, but it's just a genius use of the mechanics. The commentator explains that the skill only enhances his physique, not his weapon mastery. He says this means Superman could fight like that in real life if he could take it. With a focused eye, the protagonist prepares for the next wave of approaching enemies. At that moment, more guards appear and completely surround him, preparing for the final attack. But then a man named Kim Kale appears, identifying himself as the agency's leader. It's explained to us that the agency is a government department that deals with invaders. Their main job is to contain the dangerous threats that emerge in the reverse world. Woo Hyun recognizes the leader, surprised to see the clothes he was wearing. Kim Kale then apologizes, understanding that he's a victim who escaped the laboratory. But Woo Hyun explains he took that radio from an agent who was inside. The leader understands the agent died, and the hero notices his usual compassion. With that, Kim Kale asks him to stay with them until they can verify his identity. The mission complete screen appears, giving him a level up and a skill point. The scene then changes, showing the imposing headquarters of the interdimensional agency. Inside, Woo Hyun finds himself in a counseling room, unable to believe where he's ended up. He remembers that in the other world, he rose through the ranks by doing all sorts of jobs for company. The main request was the subjugation of the reverse world, forcing him to fight monsters. The corporations used him for cleanup, and that's how he ended up involved with the agency. Just then, a woman enters the room, and he recalls his conflicts with the organization. She then introduces herself as Lee Yujin, an agent from Team 1 of the interdimensional agency. Woo Hyun recognizes the name instantly, and the agent congratulates him for making it this far. With that, she explains that from now on, he has only two choices to make. The first was to be a protected civilian without using powers, and the second was to become an agent. Yujin warns that if he chooses to be an agent, he'll have to go through training first. He becomes thoughtful, as he's already killed 7 agents and now might become their colleague. Then, she faces him and asks what his choice will be, the life of a civilian or an agent. After reflecting, he clasps his hands firmly, ready to announce his final decision. Woo Hyun thinks being a civilian would mean working for corporations, a path he doesn't want. So he tells Yujin he's going to become an agent, and she's happy with the news. She breathes a sigh of relief, commenting that corporations were stealing the agency's talent, and she takes the opportunity to warn him that many regret signing contracts with those companies. Yujin explains that they lack experience, unlike the agency, which has a long history. The agency already has all the necessary knowledge to train the awakened and fight for real. But Woo Hyun knows that, despite paying well, the corporations have caused the deaths of many agents. He even remembers when he had to cut open a guy's stomach to get his payment. Because of that incident, he was exposed and ended up being pursued by the agency for a while. Back in the present, Yujin says she'll register him and hands him a work phone. Woo Hyun asks what he should do, and she explains he'll be a probationary agent. Before leaving, she says she really hopes he ends up on her team. He remembers the past, feeling indebted to Yujin because of an incident. After all, she was the one who led the raid on the lab that saved his and his colleagues' lives. Watching everything, a viewer gets confused, finding the conversation with the NPC too natural. The commentator is shocked, as NPCs aren't supposed to be able to communicate like that. We're shown that the NPC Yujin only gave choice-based options without real dialogue. But Song Cheol realizes the truth. It's a very advanced artificial intelligence. It's a fully responsive AI that can communicate freely with players. He explains that this technology uses so many resources, it was impossible in online game. The conclusion is that the company didn't solve the problem, but hid the AI as an Easter egg. And the condition to activate it was to start the game without any combat assistance, just like Woo Hyun did. With this discovery, the girl comments that the community forums must be on fire. Far away, a famous streamer gets interested and thinks about inviting the rookie as a guest. Back at the studio, Song Cheol announces the story part is over, but there will be PvP content. The scene changes to Woo Hyun, who's in a room waiting for the mysterious anonymous spectator 62. But instead of the player, what appears in front of him is just a random laptop. Meanwhile, a powerful man asks to be notified immediately if the so-called spectator 62 donates. The commentator then receives a message from Woo Hyun, who says he's ready. She announces to the audience that the next event of the day will be a showdown. The commentator announces, this is the physical hacker's first time playing showdown mode. With that, Song Cheol explains that he'll start in the general league, like any other rookie. We're shown that there are 8 ranks and it takes 10 wins to reach bronze. He says it takes pros 30 minutes, but average players take about 2 hours. Suddenly, a mission appears, promising a prize to whoever reaches bronze in half an hour. Woo Hyun receives the challenge from a streamer, and he accepts with a confident gesture. The two commentators get super excited, eager to see if he can complete the mission. But what they didn't know was what was about to happen, and a match is finally found. The fight begins in a residential arena, with 10 seconds until the first round starts. Looking closely, the commentator notices a strange detail and gets very confused. It turns out Woo Hyun is holding 2 swords, a weapon he's never used before. His opponent underestimates him, thinking he just needs to keep his distance to secure the win. A countdown begins, making it clear that everyone underestimated the physical hacker. The round starts, and the opponent immediately casts a powerful ice explosion spell. But in a split second, the mage's face twists in pure despair. Before the mage could react, Woo Hyun was already behind him with a sword to his neck. With a quick and precise movement, he destroys the opponent in a shower of particles. Then, the system announces Woo Hyun's victory, securing the first point of the match. The next opponent appears but instantly surrenders upon realizing he's up against a smug. With that, another victory is registered for him without even having to fight. The second match begins, and Woo Hyun unleashes an impressive dark energy from his swords. The enemy is shocked to see his special ability completely disintegrate in midair, and in the blink of an eye, the protagonist ends the fight, securing another crushing victory. In the third game, a martial artist tries his luck, charging in with everything he's got. But the result is the same, and he's defeated before he can even complete his attack. His fame spreads, and the next opponent enters the arena already sweating nervously. The victories keep piling up at an absurd speed, one after another without stopping. In the studio, the commentators watch everything with their jaws dropped, unable to believe what they're seeing. And so, in an impressive 20 minutes, he gets his 10 wins and climbs to the bronze rank. Even the commentator, who is diamond rank, admits that his achievement was incredible. Song Chul says the time is surreal, but the win record is even more shocking. He explains that normal players fluctuate, always running into a build that trips them up. But no matter what build the opponent used, the physical hacker simply defeated them. He showed a perfect performance in every fight, without faltering for a single moment. Just then, the mission prize arrives, and a large donation appears on the stream screen. The commentator gives her thanks, and says she's eager to see his performance in ranked matches. But Song Chul looks worried. Since it's a broadcast, stream sniping becomes very easy. He tries to calm down, saying the chances of it working are low, and hopes it's just him worrying. The match search begins again, now in a ranked mode and on a cemetery map. And to everyone's surprise, a player manages to snipe Woo Hyun, celebrating that it worked. The guy brags about finding the hacker, and promises to teach him a lesson right now. But Woo Hyun just draws his sword, completely ignoring the enemy's taunts. The commentator notes that he didn't fall for the taunt, as he was instructed to ignore everything. His partner looks a little embarrassed, but announces that the fight is finally starting. Then the round starts, and the enemy is enveloped in a golden energy, screaming in pain. The enemy then unleashes a massive energy attack, throwing Woo Hyun far away with the blast. He charges forward, screaming, full of hatred and wanting to finish off the protagonist once and for all. But Woo Hyun just watches him, thinking he might even let him show off a little more. However, he soon realizes it was just a waste of time, and defeats him with a single blow. The system announces the victory, leaving the opponent bloodied and cursing with rage. Next, the countdown for the second round begins, preparing them both for the next fight. Realizing he's going to lose again, the guy decides he needs to use his ace in the hole. The round begins, and he appears with a completely different and more powerful aura. Woo Hyun senses the change in the air as his own sword also starts to glow. With his new strength, the enemy lands a devastating blow, creating a huge impact. But Woo Hyun analyzes his movements, noticing they are now faster and much more efficient. The guy then laughs maniacally, asking if the hacker got his message now. He yells that he was just going easy in the first round, and that now he'll fight for real. Hearing the word hacker, Woo Hyun seems to remember a conversation he had before. It's a flashback of the commentator advising him to crush anyone who called him a hacker. With that advice in mind, his eyes gleam, and he finally decides to take the fight seriously. A dark aura surrounds Woo Hyun, and his opponent realizes the fight's atmosphere has completely changed. But he tries to convince himself not to be afraid, believing he still has the upper hand. So, the guy charges forward, yelling at Woo Hyun to stop acting cool. Woo Hyun simply stomps on the ground, creating a shockwave that shatters the stone floor. With an agile move, he dodges and lands a precise slash on his opponent's back. The player feels the pain of the blow, groaning as he's hit so violently. Furious, he turns around, cursing, but the protagonist is already ready to strike again. He blocks the enemy's strike with his sword, making the guy scream in pain from the impact. The player's face contorts in pure agony, unable to comprehend the force of that counterattack. Without giving him time to recover, Woo Hyun lands a blow and sends him flying. Completely defeated, the guy starts crying out of rage and humiliation from the beating. The round's objective lies on the ground, as the opponent no longer has the strength to fight. In the studio, the commentators notice what's happening, and the woman is shocked by the scene. Song Cheol explains that he's not ending the fight on purpose, following Nayeon's advice. The commentator gets awkward, saying she asked him to crush the guy, but not like this. Defeated, the guy asks what the hell Woo Hyun is, completely baffled by the situation, but he just replies that he'll return his words, showing the enemy's reflection on his sword. With that, the second round ends, and the system announces the protagonist's overwhelming victory. After that fight, he kept winning non-stop, quickly surpassing 30 victories. In the studio, the commentator announces he's already reached gold rank, leaving everyone surprised. Then, a fan asks him to share his build, and she's unsure if she should ask. She decides to send a message, and to everyone's surprise, Woo Hyun agrees right away. Overjoyed with the response, the girl sends a cute sticker to celebrate the moment. Then, she announces to the entire audience that the rookie will reveal his secret build. With the big news, they say their goodbyes and thank everyone for watching the stream. Even after it's over, the commentator is still shocked by the 30-win streak. His partner wonders if he can break the record, which is 76 wins. Super excited, she says she's really rooting for Woo Hyun to break that record. Song Chul then warns that the record holder is very competitive and must be watching everything. And somewhere, a hand moves quickly across a mouse, preparing to enter the game. In the game's community, the main topic was the new 30-win streak record. We're shown that the sniper reported Woo Hyun for hacking, but he was the one who ended up banned. Reading the comments, he sees they were even saying that not even the pro player battler could beat him. With a challenging smile, Battler finds the whole situation very interesting and gets excited. A few days later, the second stream begins in a forest on a beautiful sunny day. Woo Hyun thinks about Anonymous Spectator 62, who didn't show up last time, and wonders why. Suddenly, Agent Lee Yujin appears and calls out to him, waving from a distance with a smile. The chat goes wild over the NPC's appearance, praising her beauty and importance in the game. She asks if he's nervous about the mission, but he assures her everything will be fine. Right after, a mission window pops up, showing one of the perks of being a rookie. He then asks what the mission is, and Yujin explains they're going to eliminate invading entities. They arrive at an abandoned warehouse, and she says it's another problem left behind by the corporations. Yujin sighs, complaining that they just dump their useless problems on the agency to solve. The threat here are insect-type entities which are weak but attack in swarms. And to make matters worse, they're greeted by a sergeant waiting for them at the entrance. Yujin thanks the sergeant for his work, and he authorizes the two of them to enter the warehouse. They open the heavy door of the place, coming face to face with a very impressive scene inside. In the middle of the abandoned factory, a giant portal glows with an intense bluish energy. Seeing that, Woo Hyun feels a strange sense of familiarity with the portal in front of him. He remembers seeing a similar place before, but it was a much larger zone. He wonders if there's been some mistake, as Yujin calls for him to hurry up and enter. But suddenly, a man appears and taunts Yujin, asking what she's doing there. Yujin is surprised to see him and questions why Choi Hyungchul is in that place. He then accuses her of plotting something, since she always avoided easy missions. Ignoring the accusation, the man changes the subject and asks who the rookie is. He tries to convince Woo Hyun to leave the agency and join a corporation. At this, Yujin becomes furious and gives him a serious warning not to cross the line. Startled, Hyungchul raises his hands and says he'll leave the whole mission to them. He then says goodbye with a mocking smile, wishing them good luck and leaving. Woo Hyun asks who that guy was, and she reveals he was the first rookie she ever trained. Yujin explains that he went to a corporation and then started spreading rumors about the agency. In the studio, the commentator gets excited, as it's the first time they're seeing this part of the story. His partner agrees, saying the game always summarized everything without giving many details. With this, they conclude that the AI is expanding the story because of Woo Hyun's actions. Back at the portal, Yujin decides to put the sad talk aside and calls him to enter. Outside, her old team watches the two of them enter the mysterious portal. One of the men gives a sinister smile, saying that now it's time to start the plan. 20 minutes pass, and the scene shifts to a dark forest inside the reverse world. Woo Hyun appears with glowing eyes, wiping a small cut on his face after the battle. The scene pulls back to reveal Yujin on the ground, severely injured and bleeding heavily. Near her, the bullet she offered him before is now on the ground covered in blood. The scene rewinds a bit, showing the two of them stepping out of the blue portal together. Yujin explains to him that this is the passage to the reverse world. As he walks, Woo Hyun realizes the place is identical to a world he already knew. But suddenly, the entire passage begins to tremble in a very strange way. He quickly realizes an anomaly is occurring. Something isn't right here. Just then, Yujin shouts his name as a bright light shines right behind her. She tries to warn him to be careful, but it's already too late for that. The scene shifts abruptly, and now they're in a dark, silent forest. Woo Hyun looks around, realizing he was separated from Yujin along the way. He thinks that it's common for passages to collapse, and braces himself for whatever comes next. And right after, a swarm of monstrous spiders appears, completely surrounding him. He then decides he'll finish them off first and look for Yujin later. To do so, he activates a skill, and his hand begins to glow with a golden energy. The skill, Expansive Thunder, is unleashed, striking all the creatures with a powerful bolt. But in the midst of the attack, one of the spiders transforms into a dark, menacing creature. Elsewhere, Yujin fights relentlessly, but the shadow monsters never end. She notices the forest is too large, more like a mid-tier zone. With that, she takes a deep breath, suspecting something is very wrong here. As she worries about Woo Hyun, her former apprentice suddenly appears behind her. Suddenly, she senses imminent danger and spins around with a look of astonishment. Young Chil strikes her with a fire attack, hitting her square in the stomach. The impact sends her flying, while the traitor lets out a completely maniacal laugh. On the ground, she asks in disbelief why, but he just says he's on a secret mission. He even tells her not to blame him too much, as he was just following orders. Yujin clutches her wound, realizing the cut is much deeper than she thought. She then decides she needs to get out of there first, and prepares to fight with all her might. Without hesitation, she launches a powerful counterattack against one of the surrounding soldiers. But the soldier summons a massive guardian stone, managing to block the blow. The attack shatters the barrier, sending the man flying from the force of the impact. Wasting no time, Yujin rushes forward and steps on the soldier's chest, pinning him to the ground. Young Chil gets angry at the soldier and yells for the others to go after her immediately. With that, she uses the opening to escape as the men chase her through the forest. But in the middle of her escape, Yujin stops and begins to focus a strong energy in her hands. She then prepares to unleash all her accumulated power against them at once. In an acrobatic move, she slams the energy into the ground, causing a gigantic explosion. The impact hits the soldiers head-on, throwing them far away with the force of the attack. Taking advantage of the confusion, Yujin throws herself into a hole, and the soldier despairs for failing to stop her. He even blames the other one, shouting that they lost her because of him. Then, the leader orders them to spread out and search the surrounding area for her. Far away, Yujin's hand emerges from the leaves, showing she managed to hide. She reflects that if it weren't for the hole, things would have ended very badly for her. Meanwhile, Wu Yun had already defeated all the insect monsters that appeared. He looks at the footprints, certain that he felt Yujin's presence in that place. With a serious look, he concludes that something bad must have happened to her. Suddenly, the blue mission orb begins to glow, indicating a new path. Suddenly, the mission orb emits Yujin's voice, which echoes throughout the forest. He follows the sound, seeing a blue light falling from the sky among the trees. Arriving at the location, he finds one of the soldiers being attacked by a giant centipede. But the man cuts himself with a dagger, seemingly preparing to use a skill. At that, he transforms and leaps over the monster, heading towards another target. The centipede is defeated by the attack, showcasing the absurd power the soldier unleashed. Wu Yun finally finds Yujin and asks if she's okay, but she can barely answer. He notices the wound, knowing that mere insects couldn't have caused that kind of damage. Wu Yun analyzes the situation, realizing the injury was caused by a special skill. With this, he is certain that all of this was the work of the traitor Choi Hyung-kyeol. The mission orb reveals that the enemy must have followed the portal's anomaly. Back at the studio, the female commentator is completely shocked by what's happening. Her partner finds it strange, as Hyung-kyeol usually launches his attacks much later. They then theorize that this is an effect of the adaptive AI creating a secret story. The scene shows Yujin in hiding, thinking she barely escaped and could be attacked again. Yujin asks him to run first, but he tells her to hide and leave it to him. But she yells no because Hyung-kyeol is a veteran and he won't be able to do it alone. Wu Yun reassures her with a confident look, revealing he already has a plan in mind. Meanwhile, near the river, the henchmen search for her and wonder where she's hiding. The leader orders them to search the valley, saying he'll go down to find the main target. Suddenly, the traitor senses a strange presence, and his eyes go on high alert. Just then, a fire attack comes out of nowhere, forcing him to dodge at the last second. The scene reveals a frightened young man who desperately asks him to wait a moment. Hyung-kyeol approaches and asks if he's the rookie, and the boy seems relieved. Wearing a mask, Wu Yun pretends to know nothing and tells the story of being separated at the portal. The traitor then hugs him, feigning friendship and offering to explain what happened. With a malicious smile, he says the rookie will find her soon. He just needs to rest. But it was all a trap, and Wu Yun grabs him, revealing the plan and leaving him in shock. Choi Hyung-kyeol is on the ground, spitting blood and angrily cursing his opponent. His companions rush to help, asking what happened to him. The agent examines him, when suddenly a sinister silhouette emerges from the trees. Then, one of them says he'll go after the guy while the other handles first aid. He chases the suspect through the forest, but ends up losing sight of him along the way. The agent then thinks the fugitive couldn't have gone far, and continues searching. But out of nowhere, a sharp object flies past him, catching him by surprise. In the blink of an eye, the white-haired man appears before him and grabs him by the neck. Meanwhile, the other agent tries to stop his partner's bleeding to keep him from dying. Suddenly, a strange glow catches his attention, coming from the direction of the forest. Before he could react, a sword pierces his chest, brutally taking his life. In his last moment, he's terrified by the scene, thinking the guy was a maniac. The killer reveals himself completely, showing a cold and emotionless gaze. He approaches the surviving agent and asks where his partner went. The man glares at him coldly, gripping the hilt of his blade tightly. The remaining agent charges with his sword, shouting furiously to avenge his partners. But he gets distracted when he sees his colleague being attacked by stone spikes sprouting from the ground. Enraged by the scene, the agent leaps into the air, vowing to kill the one responsible. Kim Young-jin, however, easily destroys the spikes with his energy sphere. Without giving up, the helmeted agent touches the ground, declaring the fight isn't over. He focuses his power, causing the ground to crack and prepare for a major attack. With this, he creates a giant earth wave that rushes forward to crush his opponent. But Kim Young-jin just stares at the blow, his eyes glowing with a golden hue. He stops the earth wave with a single hand, causing the rock to shatter on impact. The massive attack is completely neutralized by the young man's absurd strength. In seconds, the entire wave crumbles, showing just how powerful he truly is. The agent is completely shocked, thinking that guy is a real monster. Then, Kim Young-jin summons a giant stone pillar, shaping it with his magic. He uses his own sword to strike the creation, turning it into a new weapon. With a single slash, he breaks off the tip of the rock, which flies like a projectile. Even with his arm bleeding, Kim Young-jin remains completely focused. The agent falls into the spike trap, screaming in panic for him to stay away. Then, the white-haired warrior sheathes his sword, signaling the end of the fight. The rock tips he created quickly close in on the defenseless target. In an instant, the spikes collide, piercing the agent and ending his life. With the last enemy defeated, he kneels victoriously with his two blades. The agent can barely speak as blood trickles down from inside his helmet. The battle ends and he breathes a sigh of relief, wiping the blood from his face. The scene changes, showing a streamer who's completely shocked by what she just watched. She comments to her partner about the fight, a simply surreal 3-on-1. Back in the arena, he looks at his wound and thinks his level is still too low. He then decides to look around, amidst the bodies of the defeated enemies. On the trader's phone, he finds a suspicious message about a secret mission. With the body in hand, he announces the investigation will now go to the agency. But he also finds a powerful dagger, an item that returns to his hand. He also finds the Victor's bracelet, an item that increases the power of his skills. And finally, the Hermit's necklace, perfect for storing or retrieving items at will. He holds the dagger, thinking that in this world, it's easy to see the effects of items. With that, he sheathes his swords, as the danger has passed and now he needs to run. His goal is to clear the area quickly, before Yujin's injuries get worse. Speaking of her, the agent stares at the sky, looking a bit tired of the situation. But a giant emperor scorpion, the stage's boss, appears right in front of her. She complains about her bad luck, but at the same time feels lucky she's not the rookie here. Suddenly, a wave of dark energy is fired in the direction of the injured agent. She then decides she'll have to deal with this alone, and focuses power in her hand. With that, Yujin casts a barrier of golden lightning to try and stop the attack. But the monster's claw pushes through without difficulty, leaving her completely in shock. The scorpion prepares to crush her, when a purple barrier protects her at the last second. Out of nowhere, Woo Hyun appears above the defeated monster, and asks if she's okay. She turns red and is speechless upon seeing him, while the live stream chat goes wild. Suddenly, the dimension begins to crack like glass, indicating the portal is about to close. Woo Hyun congratulates her on the victory, and says he'll carry her so they can get out of there as fast as possible. With her on his back, the commentators explain that they need to escape before they get trapped. He asks her to hold on tight, leaving Agent Yujin a bit embarrassed by the situation. Then, the two of them run desperately towards the portal, as the world behind them falls apart. As they exit, the system informs them that the clear is complete, and he gains several levels at once. The scene shifts, showing us the imposing headquarters of the management agency. Inside, Leader Kim Cheol asks if it's true that Yujin was injured in an enemy attack. Woo Hyun confirms the story, leaving the leader enraged that they crossed the line. The leader is in disbelief when Woo Hyun says he killed them all and asks how he managed it alone. He then remembers the scene, alone and surrounded by the bodies of the soldiers who attacked him. As proof, he hands over one of their cell phones, explaining the orders were in the messages. Satisfied, the leader says the investigation will be easier now, and tells the young man to go rest. But just as Woo Hyun was about to leave, Kim Cheol calls out to him one last time. He gives him a warning, phrased as advice that there will surely be another chance in the future. Until then, he tells the young man to hold on, asking him to understand the message. Woo Hyun replies that he understands, with a look that shows he knows what to do. The system announces that the mission is complete, and now he can choose his second element. The livestream commentators celebrate the end of the mission, which was more spectacular than expected. But suddenly, the streamer gets a notification and is surprised by what she sees. An anonymous viewer donates a large sum of money and also sends a special quest along with it. Woo Hyun gets the donation notification, and the streamer points out it's an absurd amount. So, she sends him a screenshot, making him curious about this so-called special mission. He remembers the same viewer mentioned it, but they'll only reveal it at the end of the stream. Woo Hyun thanks her for the info and asks her to continue streaming for now. Her partner Sung Chul notices Nae Eon is distracted and asks if something's wrong. She sees the donation was private, visible only to her, but decides to focus on the stream first. To hide it, she gets excited and yells that the stream is on fire and they're going straight to PvP. They both recall that in the last PvP, a mysterious female player shot up the win rankings. It's explained that today's mode is Brawl, a 5-on-5 with 4 game types. But the chat starts to complain as they wanted to see duels, not a team match. Neon gives a confident wink, saying they'll change their minds once they see it. The match search for escort mode is complete, and the attacking team gets ready. The commentator confirms, announcing that the first game of the day will indeed be an escort match. He explains that the attack team takes the payload to the objective, while the defense tries to stop them. A map shows the path, and the streamer gets excited to see the so-called goddess in action. The system announces the start of the first round, and the mission truck begins to move. The attack team advances with the payload, while Woo Hyun hangs back, observing. Suddenly he breaks off from the team, taking a completely different path from the objective. The commentator is confused, wondering why he'd be retreating at the start of the game. But Woo Hyun has a determined look, showing it's all part of his strategy. The streamer Nayeon quickly realizes and warns that he's going for a flank. Her partner agrees, explaining it's a risky play that requires a lot of skill. Even though stopping 5 players alone is nearly impossible, he sprints down an alley. Next, he jumps and shatters a window, taking a shortcut to flank the enemy. The map shows his incredible speed as he closes in on the enemy defense team. The defenders look up, startled to see a silhouette flying above them. Still in the air, Woo Hyun draws a dagger, preparing to eliminate the first target. And with a precise throw, he hurls the blade toward one of the players. The dagger hits its mark, causing an instant kill and shocking the other defenders. One of them panics, yelling that they're being ambushed from behind. Giving them no chance to defend, he eliminates 2 more enemies with swift, brutal attacks. Their allies are totally lost, wondering what their team is doing back there. Then, an enemy player decides to face him alone to buy his team some time to advance. But the kill feed keeps lighting up, showing that Woo Hyun is wiping the map. In the blink of an eye, round 1 ends with a victory for the attacking team. The commentators are stunned. They expected a fight, but it was a one-sided massacre. Song Cho thinks he seems faster than usual, as if he has something urgent to do. In annihilation mode, the story repeats itself with Woo Hyun wiping out the enemies. He defeats all 5 by himself, leaving the arena littered with fallen bodies. The scene shifts to conquest, with an explosion breaching the castle wall. The defenders scream in desperation, telling their allies to stop the invader at any cost. But Woo Hyun is already at the top, dodging fire attacks with incredible ease. He fights multiple enemies at once, showcasing his combat superiority. With his face stained with blood, his intense gaze makes it clear that no one can stop him. Finally, in capture mode, the enemy flag appears stained, symbolizing their defeat. Amidst the enemy's bodies, Woo Hyun captures the flag, securing the victory single-handedly. Just then, the anonymous viewer sends more money and reveals his special mission. The streamer Naeon goes crazy over the cash and tells Woo Hyun about the new message, but he ignores her excitement and just asks her to send the mission screenshot. He reads the orders and realizes he'll have to keep playing to complete the objective. As the 2 exchange messages in chat, Woo Hyun contemplates the situation. For now, he decides to play along and follow the mysterious viewer's plan. The scene changes to a few days later at an agency combat training field. There, Woo Hyun gets a message from Yujin, saying she found a substitute mentor for him. The commentators are curious, wondering who his new mentor could be. Her partner thinks that, given Woo Hyun's fame, it must be a very important agent. Arriving at the location, he finds Lee Yujin herself, who greets him with a bandaged hand. He asks if she's feeling better, and she confirms someone else will be his mentor for now. Suddenly, she points to someone, saying the person has finally arrived to meet him. Then, the footsteps of a mysterious person slowly approach them down the hall. A woman with purple hair appears and introduces herself as Kim Hannah, the new mentor. Woo Hyun introduces himself too, but pauses, immediately recognizing her name. He remembers she's number 2 at the agency, a very dangerous enemy from his past. At that, Yujin says she's leaving and pinches Hannah's cheek, annoying her. She runs off, leaving Woo Hyun in the care of the new mentor, who yells for her to come back. With that, the two are left alone in the training field, in an awkward silence. Then, she asks what kind of sword he prefers, and he replies that he uses both. Hana is intrigued by his answer, trying to guess his true power level. Without wasting time, she challenges him to a little fight to test his skills. Seeing this, the stream's commentator is completely shocked by the situation.Is partner asks what's wrong, but he thinks the way the story is unfolding is weird. She, however, sees no problem and thinks it's normal for two swordmasters to want to fight. Inside the ring, the two face off with training swords, ready for combat. The commentator agrees, but it seems something is still bothering him about it. He explains that this only happens because Woo Hyun is the game's protagonist. The scene cuts to the streamer, who is completely terrified by what's happening on screen. Woo Hyun thinks that even with an advanced AI, his story is different from other players. It's explained that depending on the player's actions, the story can take different paths. Because of this, he starts to feel that this game is almost like reality itself. Meanwhile, Hana stares him down with a serious look, ready to begin the real fight. Hana suggests a sword-only fight, but Woo Hyun says that's impossible. He explains that his strength skill is always on, and she agrees to use hers as well. With a confident smile, Hana prepares for the intense battle. Woo Hyun also gives a smirk, showing he's ready for the challenge ahead. And with the starting signal, the training between them finally begins for real. Instantly, she rushes in with a swift strike, which is blocked by Woo Hyun. She continues the attack with a vertical slash, forcing our hero to retreat, but he ducks to dodge the blade, which passes inches from his face. The impact of the blow throws him off balance, making him fall to his knees on the ring floor. Seizing the opportunity, Hana stomps hard on the ground to create an opening. With that, dust kicks up, and she uses it as a distraction for her next attack. The two leap into the air, clashing their swords again in an aerial combat. The commentator is impressed, saying that, as expected, Kim Hana is very strong, and the streamer thinks her build is the wind god type because of her speed. The battle in the air continues intensely, with both of them showing an absurd level of power. The commentator corrects her, explaining that the build was actually inspired by Kim Hana herself. But he also praises Woo Hyun, since he's able to keep up with her absurd speed. The two lock their swords, staring each other down in a contest of strength and skill. Hana is impressed, as the young man can keep up with all her movements. She notices it's not just speed. The young man knows how to exploit openings with precision. With a wicked smile, she warns him that she'll have to use a little more of her strength. At that, she unleashes a powerful aura and her sword glows, ready for a mortal blow. She attacks from above with full force, aiming directly at our hero's head. But he dodges at the last second, and her sword creates a crater in the ground. She turns to him, saying that, as expected, she knew he'd be able to dodge. In the middle of the smoke, the two back away, showing how intense the fight was. Hana congratulates him, saying he's much more skilled than she expected. She asks who he learned to fight from, and he says he learned everything on his own. With the fight over, she tells him to follow her to a special place. Arriving there, he sees a wall full of swords and axes, like an armory. A man reveals that this place is the armory of the Interdimensional Management Agency. He introduces himself as Kim Hyun-woo, and says he heard Woo Hyun needed a weapon. The hero confirms, as his current weapon has no special combat abilities. With that, Hyun-woo authorizes him to choose a weapon, and then leaves the area. Hana then tells him to take his time choosing, while watching him closely. Woo Hyun analyzes the options, but thinks there are fewer good weapons than he imagined. Suddenly, he finds a red spear that steals enemies' blood to heal the user. But just as he was about to grab the spear, something at the back of the room catches his attention. His gaze fixes on a dark, imposing sword leaning against the wall. To his surprise, it was the Soul Eater, a legendary sword that devours the souls of its enemies. He picks it up, wondering how a black market item ended up in the armory. A memory surfaces in his mind, revealing that this was his beloved weapon in the other world. Woo Hyun then makes up his mind and tells Hana he's taking that two-handed sword. He asks her to transfer the weapon's ownership, while looking at it with admiration. The scene cuts to the live streamer, who is completely terrified by his choice. The live streamer freaks out because at this stage only 2 weapon options should have appeared. The commentator points out that this isn't the first time he's gotten a rare item like this. He mentions that the Hermit's Necklace was also an item from an advanced stage of the game. At this, he explains that the game has a clear system where risk equals reward. He concludes that Woo Hyun faced several challenges on purpose to get these items. The young man completed everything with excellence, from the lab escape to the fight with Hannah. The streamer agrees and thinks the Soul Eater is the reward for all these accomplishments, but her partner warns that it's just a hypothesis and they need to keep watching. Back in the armory, the transfer is complete and the sword is now officially his. Hannah suggests they go on a mission so he can get used to the new weapon. The scene changes, showing the two arriving at the top of a snow-covered mountain. They finally reach the teleportation portal and take a deep breath before entering. She comments that he's already warmed up since the journey there was quite long. A guard warns them that the portal is just ahead, but the area is very dangerous. It's explained that this place is full of wolves who will soon sense their presence. Woo Hyun thinks about the beast, saying that this will save him the trouble of looking for them. At this, Hannah says she'll just watch and will only intervene if things get ugly. He then summons the Soul Eater from his inventory, the sword glowing purple. Suddenly, a loud noise echoes through the forest, announcing the arrival of something. Several wolf paws run through the snow, quickly approaching the 2 hunters. With his eyes glowing, Woo Hyun senses the threat and warns that they're coming. Immediately after, a pack of giant wolves surrounds the pair, ready to attack. Without hesitation, he leaps into the air, preparing his first attack with all his strength. The protagonist decides to go all out from the start, descending with his sword in hand. With a single spin, he releases a wave of energy that destroys all the wolves. The system then notifies him that the Soul Eater's cutting power has greatly increased. The commentators are shocked as he wields the giant sword as if it were a feather. At this, the hero holds the weapon, feeling it's different from anything he's ever used. Hannah is impressed by what she sees, recognizing the technique he just used. Then she asks if that was the legendary Celestial Moonslash, completely surprised. The warrior just defeated a wolf, but another one is already preparing to pounce. In the broadcast room, a commentator is confused, not understanding the situation. Suddenly, a pack of electric wolves appears, surrounding the player from all sides. A streamer is startled, saying the elite monsters appeared too quickly. Without wasting a moment, the beasts charge forward together, leaping to attack all at once. But the warrior reacts instantly, spinning his blade at incredible speed. The scene cuts to the commentators who wonder where he learned to fight like that. The streamer then has a guess, wondering if it could be the Colosseum method. Back in the action, he cuts down one of the wolves with a brutal and precise strike. Just then, a donation on screen confirms the theory, mentioning the Colosseum training. He plants his feet firmly on the ground, using the momentum to launch himself at the other beast, and with a powerful aerial attack, he descends to finish off the remaining monsters. His sword pierces the leader's skull, ending the fight in a bloody fashion. Watching everything, Agent Kim Hannah gives a smile, looking quite satisfied. The system then announces that his weapon's cutting power has increased from the battle. Suddenly, his eye glows yellow, detecting an incredibly powerful presence. He then takes a defensive stance, sensing something huge is coming his way. And from the skies, the head of a colossal wolf emerges, opening its mouth to attack. It was the boss monster, the Silver Wolf, charging at him with absurd force. The commentator gets excited, explaining that this boss is famous for destroying newbies. The force of the impact is so great that he's dragged back through the forest. The streamer says he managed to block it, but he's being pushed back by the monster's strength. He uses his own body and his weapon to hold back the giant creature's bite. With a yell of exertion, he tries to push the beast's jaw away from him. Then he manages to break free, leaping away and preparing to counterattack. In a swift spin, he gathers energy in his blade for a single, decisive blow. He grips his weapon tightly, noticing the beast is much stronger than the other monsters. But with a confident smile, he makes it clear he can handle this level of power. And in a flash, he unleashes an energy slash that splits the wolf in two. His sword then devours the boss's soul, further increasing its cutting power. An agent approaches him, praising the agency's most promising rookie. She then confesses she almost interfered, as the boss was stronger than expected. On the stream, the streamer gets worked up, pointing out the difficulty was supposed to be lower. She analyzes the situation and says the level seemed to be at least B rank. Back in the forest, Agent Hannah continues to lay out the facts for Baek Woo-hyun. The commentator agrees that the game's difficulty patterns are very strange. He hypothesizes that the player's actions might be influencing the mission. But even with the boss dead, the portal didn't close, which is a clear anomaly. The agent then calls him to investigate the cause, and the two advance through the forest. Suddenly, they hear a noise in the bushes and stop in surprise to look. And right there, they find a nest with a giant glowing egg in the middle. Just then, the egg starts to crack, putting both agents on high alert. She warns him to be careful, and the egg shatters with a bright flash of light. But to their surprise, out comes a cute little puppy that barks happily. The two are left completely confused as the small dog excitedly runs around them. The agent notices the anomaly as the docile pup rubs against the warrior's leg. He then suggests taking the creature to the lab, since it's a very special case. Wee-hyun agrees with the plan and picks up the puppy, which barks very cutely. The world around them begins to crumble, and she warns that they need to get out of there now. The scene shifts to the agency's headquarters, where the case was also a first of its kind. In the lab, the doctor reveals that the creature is not from another world. To their surprise, he suspects it's a summon, but Hannah denies that they have that ability. The conclusion is that the pup originated from the reverse world itself, and not from the agents. The doctor explains they can't take it, as it has already grown attached to Wee-hyun. Suddenly, the system registers the lightning wolf as his pet, leaving him confused. And out of nowhere, an emergency maintenance notification appears for all players. Wee-hyun is left confused as his sword and the pup begin to glow red. On the stream, the streamer asks what's suddenly happening with the game. The commentators find it too much of a coincidence. A new pet and an update right after. But a donation celebrates the reveal of the game's first pet, even before the update. The streamer gets excited, wondering if the emergency update was because of his pet. With maintenance approaching, she decides to end the stream and says goodbye to her audience. Elsewhere, someone turns off the TV as soon as our hero's live stream ends. The scene changes to a conference room at planet Earth in the United States. A woman asks if Wee-hyun is the guy who found an Easter egg they didn't even know existed. Development lead Sophia gets annoyed about an update not even her team knew about. Then one of the employees says that only one person would be capable of doing something like that. We are introduced to Isaac, the team's brilliant former leader, who is now missing. Sophia is furious because he just shuts down the server and updates it however he wants. She then asks about the god, but the team says they haven't been able to activate it yet. We then see an image of the AI that stopped working when Isaac mysteriously disappeared. Without wasting any time, Sophia orders them to check if there's any more hidden update data. She yells that they need to find that data no matter what, no matter how hard it is. And she also orders them to put Wee-hyun on a special surveillance list to monitor him. With a determined look, she vows that she won't let Isaac's plan succeed. The scene then shifts to a digital space, where a hand made of code manifests. The hand glows brightly, and then dissolves into an explosion of data and light. The scene shifts to a cafe, where Wee-hyun is meeting a girl to talk. A system message pops up, warning him he'll need a trusted companion. The girl excitedly talks about an anonymous viewer, leaving Wee-hyun deep in thought. He has two missions, one to eliminate a director, and another to unlock a new system. For that, he thinks this anonymous viewer must be related to the system somehow. She suggests it might be an employee from the games company, but he thinks it's a coincidence. She then changes the subject, saying she has great news about the SSR Cup. We're told this is the country's biggest PvP tournament, which recruits famous people. He asks why they want him as a coach, and she says he's the center of attention. She continues, saying he can showcase his skills in a different way at the event. He then asks if being a coach means training a disciple, and she confirms. Remembering the mission, he sees the opportunity and accepts the offer on the spot. The girl is shocked by his quick decision, but happy about what it'll bring to the stream. She immediately grabs her phone to confirm, while he thinks about needing a companion. Days later, a new broadcast begins with the commentators welcoming everyone. The female commentator makes a bombshell announcement. The god of mechanics will be a coach in the SSR Cup. The news surprises the chat, with everyone wondering why he won't be a player. At this, the commentators explain that playing well and teaching well are two completely different things. Woo Hyun then decides to focus on raising his rank, to have credibility as a coach. It's revealed he's unranked in survival mode, but he can play to get place. Suddenly, an insane mission appears, with a reward that shocks the hosts. He faces the challenge of getting 40 kills without weapons, and the female commentator doubts it's possible. But the god of mechanics accepts the mission and queues up for survival mode to prove it. The system doesn't take long and finds him a solo ranked match to start the challenge. His character then spawns on the map, appearing in an abandoned military base. He scans the area, noticing he's on the outskirts of the main combat zone. With his skill, he detects 19 other players nearby. Knowing the mission, he understands he needs to hurry if he wants those 40 kills. So, without wasting a second, he leaps from a high place to start the hunt. Upon landing, he unleashes a shockwave that surges forward, clearing a path ahead. He immediately rushes in, punching the first opponent, who doesn't even have time to react. And without stopping, he lands a solid hit on another enemy, showing his absurd strength. The commentators and the chat are shocked, unable to believe the speed of the fight. A kill feed starts scrolling up the screen, one after another without stopping. Woo Hyun moves like a blur across the map, hunting down every target he finds. With that, he's already racked up 18 kills, approaching the halfway mark of the mission. After clearing the outskirts, he decides to head to the center of the map to find more people. The match progresses, and now only 2 players are left standing, him and one other. Elsewhere, the last opponent is also waiting, his face covered by a hood. Woo Hyun finds him and immediately goes for a high, powerful strike. But the guy dodges with absurd speed, surprising the chat and our hero. The mysterious player lands nimbly, preparing to counterattack at once. He then cracks his knuckles, showing he's also ready for a close-quarters fight. Woo Hyun faces his opponent, and the commentator notices something familiar in his style. They notice the player is also using a strength build, just like the god of mechanics. The female commentator notes that the mysterious player already has a total of 15 kills. Meanwhile, Woo Hyun has 39, just one short of completing the mission. The final fight begins, and he dodges a swift strike from his opponent, but he instantly counterattacks, landing a heavy blow on the hooded figure. From the impact, the mysterious player doubles over, feeling the force of the attack. He tries to recover, but Woo Hyun dodges again, giving him no openings. The two then trade blows, their fists clashing with immense force. With that, the opponent is pushed back, and Woo Hyun prepares to go all in. The hooded player grits his teeth, feeling the pressure of the intense battle. The commentators are shocked, saying the two are fighting like martial artists. Woo Hyun realizes his opponent's movements are good, but still not enough to win. The enemy attempts an aerial strike, but our hero dodges it perfectly. He then strikes the guy's chest with his palm, breaking his guard. With the fight decided, he thinks he can end this once and for all, and in a devastating rush, he lunges forward to deliver the final blow of the match. Defeated, the mysterious player laments as he wasn't used to this build, but he says it was fun, and warns that next time the fight will be for real. Woo Hyun is intrigued by the warning, as the enemy vanishes before his eyes. Then the system confirms the end of the game with him in first place and 40 kills. The commentators celebrate ecstatically, as he has finally completed the insane mission. And on the screen, the donation from DUS appears, paying out the huge promised reward. Excited, the female commentator tells him to ride the momentum and keep climbing the ranks. And that's how, on that day, he got 96 consecutive wins and reached master rank. The scene changes, showing a girl on her phone, looking at game news. She then sees a post about the audition to become the god of mechanics disciple. The streamer, young Ariam, asks her brother if they shouldn't apply too. But her brother, young Dawoon, informs her he's already applied, and that he's the oldest. She complains that he was fast, and it's explained that the two are twins. Meanwhile, at the Planet Earth office, Sophia is closely analyzing the situation. She reads a detailed report on the recent activities of the player Woo Hyun, and upon seeing the name DUS, she's intrigued, because it seemed very suspicious. A few days later, everything was set up in a large stadium for the broadcast to begin. First off, he shows off his new pet, the adorable level 1 lightning wolf. The pet skills are pretty basic, and the commentator says it doesn't seem special. Over the radio, Nayeon tells him she's already selected the audition finalists for him to see. Just then, the commentator calls her, saying the broadcast is about to start. She then asks him to get ready, and Woo-hyun decides to send the pet back home. The little pup makes a cute noise, seeming like it doesn't want to leave. He gets a little flustered by the creature's cuteness, but quickly composed. Now, in front of the terminal, he prepares to start the audition event. But suddenly, an emergency alert sounds, and his communicator starts to vibrate. He takes out his phone and sees an urgent message from the Dimensional Administration Agency. Several alerts start popping up, reporting attacks in different cities across the country. The commentators are shocked, as a massive attack is happening live. It's explained that this is a reverse attack, where monsters from another dimension invade Earth. Woo-hyun then receives a new mission, and wonders if the dimensional war is getting worse. Suddenly, Agent Kim Hana comes running, excitedly calling Woo-hyun a rookie. She tells him she's already prepared a vehicle for them, as they need to act as quickly as possible. The scene changes and the two arrive at a national park, the site of one of the attacks. As they enter, they find several dead goblins, realizing they arrived too late. She explains that other agents must have arrived earlier to hunt the monsters. Hannah then suggests they split up to cover more ground, and he agrees. With the plan set, she says goodbye and runs off in another direction to help. Alone, his eyes gleam as he decides which way to investigate first. Elsewhere, a person runs desperately, screaming for them to stay away. Right behind, a helpless girl is being chased by a pack of wild goblins. But suddenly, a chained weapon flies towards the monsters at high speed. The blade hits one of the goblins in the head, which screams in pain from the impact. Woo-hyun then pulls the chain, dragging the creature with no difficulty. He swings the monster's body, using it as a weapon to save the frightened civilian. But in the midst of this, another goblin leaps from the shadows to try a surprise attack. But with a single move of his weapon, he finishes off all the remaining goblins. With the danger gone, he introduces himself as an agent and points her toward the safe path. The girl thanks him and runs off, leaving him alone in the forest clearing. The creature stares at Woo-hyun, seeming to analyze its opponent before the battle. He notes that it's the first time an invader has appeared like this, without warning. Undeterred, Woo-hyun gets into a fighting stance and says he'll take on the challenge. The two exchange a serious look, preparing for the coming combat. Without wasting a second, Woo-hyun charges full force at the new enemy. The first impact between them generates a huge explosion of energy on the spot, but the demon withstands the blow, revealing a golden aura and much more power. Woo-hyun doesn't back down, and lands a solid blow on the purple creature's face. He then moves so fast he creates several afterimages, surrounding the enemy from all sides. The commentator says the fight is reminiscent of the last survival finals. With a glint in his eye, Woo-hyun realizes his suspicion was right all along. The two trade blows, and he confirms that the enemy is copying his moves. He then remembers that a special robot was created to hunt him in the past. But this time the creature is much stronger, and unleashes an energy blast. Woo-hyun isn't intimidated, and grabs the demon's arm with crushing force. He says the imitation is clumsy, and slams the invader into the ground with all his. The impact is so strong it creates a crater, ending the battle at once. With a bloodied fist, he stares at the creature's destroyed body on the ground, and he wonders who could be behind this, repeating the same tactic from the laboratory. He suspects the corporate alliance, or maybe even the invader's side. But suddenly, an idea strikes him and he starts connecting the dots. He realizes the enemy didn't copy him in PvE, but in his PvP fight. This means that just as he suspected, someone powerful is behind everything. The image of a digital face appears, and he wonders if it's Spectator 62 again. A familiar voice calls out, pulling him from his thoughts about the mysterious enemy. It was Agent Hannah who asks if he's cleared the area, and he confirms it's done. But upon seeing the monster's body on the ground, she is completely shocked by the scene. She realizes it was a commander-type invader, something that shouldn't be there. Over the radio, she requests a cleanup crew and a general alert for other invaders. Afterwards, she praises him for a job well done, and he asks about the other areas. Hannah explains that the situation has calmed down, and they should head back to base now. With the mission complete, the system notifies him that he has leveled up and gained a point. The scene shifts back to the agency headquarters, where the situation is carefully analyzed. His superior calls him in for a talk, saying the subject is the invader he killed. He explains that the creature is completely different, almost like another species. So he asks for details, and Woo Hyun begins to recount everything that happened in the fight. But the man is shocked to hear that the invader tried to copy his movements. On the broadcast, the commentators find his reaction strange and important. The superior explains that an invader has never imitated a human, which is very dangerous. He concludes that if they've changed tactics, their infiltration of Earth will be nearly unstoppable. Woo Hyun realizes the gravity of the situation, as this would cause chaos and a large-scale invasion. Furthermore, he suspects the corporate alliance, who would join them for profit. The superior takes a deep breath, aware of the imminent danger they are all now facing. But he changes his tone, thanking Woo Hyun for preventing a greater disaster. Then he hands him a box, saying the rookie is now qualified to receive it. Woo Hyun opens the gift, curious to know what was inside that little box. As he leaves the room, he's surprised by a familiar voice calling him down the hall. It was Kim Hana and Lee Yujin, who seem excited to see him again after a while. They explain they came to congratulate him on the gift he received from the leader. Inside the box was the official agent's badge, a tradition for those promoted. Yujin says his mentor should be doing this, but she'll do it in his place. Carefully, she then pins the new badge onto the collar of Woo Hyun's uniform. The two of them warmly congratulate him on becoming an official agent. He thanks them, and Yujin informs him that now he needs to learn something very important. He gains solo operation authority, allowing him to act without red tape. Hannah laments that he's already achieved it, since she got injured a lot to get to that point. The two of them look embarrassed, but they know the circumstances behind it were serious. Yujin tells him not to hesitate to call them for help, even with his new authority. Back on the broadcast, the host cuts the scene and asks about his plans. He says that today's announcement will be about the audition Woo Hyun is going to hold. With a post on the screen, he reminds everyone about the audition to become a disciple. The audition is then announced with the name The New Nuclear Superstar. She confirms the number of applicants is huge, and the selection is already in its final phase. With a thumbs up, she asks the audience to follow along until the end of the event. Backstage, we see the finalists waiting, including the two twin siblings. The atmosphere is tense, and the two look at each other, wondering what the competition will be like. Dawoon notices the variety of finalists, from a famous YouTuber to a rookie. He also sees a muscular streamer, and wonders why he was called for the audition. We then see the guy scoffing, saying this so-called god isn't all he's cracked up to be. Dawoon thinks they chose him on purpose to teach him a lesson, but his sister doubts it. In fact, it was Naeon who chose the candidate, and she now knows he's in big trouble. The production team then starts the countdown for the live broadcast. The commentators welcome the viewers and introduce themselves for the event. They explain that the audition will be in an open studio to accommodate a large crowd, and without further ado, they call out the big star of the day, the god of mechanics. With a shining aura, Baek Woo Hyun appears on stage, formally introducing himself. The participants are impressed by his presence, unable to believe what they're seeing, but he maintains a serious expression, focusing on his goal for the day. In a flashback, he asks Naeon which game content requires teammates. We then see that raids are one of the two main PvE contents in the game. Unlike the reverse world, in a raid you need to defeat an enemy and have a party. Back in the present, he faces the candidates and says he's here to select a student. He warns that the chosen one must follow his teachings, and anyone who isn't up for it can leave. He also says that anyone who doesn't follow his instructions can be expelled at any time. He then promises that if they have the will to learn, he will take them to the master rank. The scoffing streamer expresses doubt, saying Woo Hyun needs to prove his skills first. So he steps down from the stage and issues a challenge, a 12-on-1 fight. And the rule is simple: if they land one valid hit in 10 minutes, they win. The commentators are shocked, as he made this decision without telling anyone. One of the candidates sees the opportunity, since a single blow guarantees they'll pass. But he knows it would be impossible without a handicap, so he draws a circle. He promises he won't step out of that space, and he won't attack first either. At this, a candidate asks if they can team up, and he allows the use of anything. With the rules set, his eye gleams, and he finally announces the start of the test. One of the hunters glares at him with a smirk, saying he wants to see how tough he is. Then he unleashes a gigantic fire spear, yelling to see how much he can take. But our protagonist faces the attack head-on, without a single shred of fear. With a subtle movement, the spear passes right through him and explodes behind him. The hunter is shocked, unable to believe he dodged the attack so easily. Then, with a superior air, he says he doesn't have time, and tells them all to come at once. The other hunters look at each other, preparing to attack together and surround their target. They charge at the same time, unleashing a barrage of attacks from all directions. Even surrounded, the masked man faces them all with a cold, calculating gaze. And suddenly, a shockwave effortlessly throws all the enemies away. Lying on the ground, they realize their attacks are having no effect on him. Just as one of them gets motivated not to give up, a new person appears before them. It was a new hunter, who runs in and yells for them to leave the rest to her. Without hesitation, the girl charges toward the enemy with impressive speed. She then goes for a double attack, aiming high and low at the same time. But he blocks both hits at once, leaving the girl impressed by his defense. Without a second thought, he throws them both away with absurd strength, catching them by surprise. They fall to the ground, completely dazed, as the test time finally runs out. With that, all the hunters are defeated, leaving only him standing in the middle of the arena. He then says this proves his skills, and asks if anyone still has any objection. Quickly, the big guy answers for everyone, shouting that no one there disagrees. He warns that this only proves his power, and now he needs to show he's also a good coach. The scene changes to the stage, where Naeon announces that the nuclear superstar program is about to begin. The masked man finishes her sentence, confirming the start of the competition with a serious look. At that, the commentator Songchul asks Naeon what the disciples' first mission will be. She explains it's a simple challenge of holding a 150 kilograms bar for 3 minutes. Songchul adds that the mission's build improves a player's strength and stamina. To prove it, Naeon shows a holographic photo of her and her partner completing the challenge. She then invites the participants to come on stage and asks if anyone has any questions. Right away, the two hunters raise their hands, wanting to know the mission's rules. Songchul explains that the score depends on speed, so being fast gives you an advantage. With that, Naeon announces that the bottom 4 will be eliminated from the competition. The hunters are shocked by the news, as they didn't expect such a big elimination. But Naeon calms them down, saying they can try again within the 30-minute time limit. 5 minutes later, everyone was already training hard, trying to lift the barbell's weight. Meanwhile, a donation appears on the live stream, with a fan asking who will pass first. The commentator asks the others for their predictions, and the masked man bets the twins will win. Suddenly, Naeon panics as she reads a document about the show's poor reception. She desperately defends herself, shouting that they aren't ignoring long-range builds. To prove her point, she reveals that the second mission will be a shooting test. Then she asks who wants to take the challenge, and the swordsman and the twins volunteer on the spot. The three of them get ready on the platform, waiting for the signal to start the real test. At the start, they all use their maximum strength to lift the heavy bar at once. After a minute, one of the twins already thinks about giving up, but his sister refuses to stop. But at almost 3 minutes, the swordsman can't hold on and drops the bar, getting eliminated. Naeon excitedly announces that the twins have passed the 3-minute mark, being the first to do so. With a victorious smile, they celebrate together, showing they came to compete for real. The swordsman then desperately asks if he can try again, and the host agrees. And on his second attempt, he finally succeeds, showing his great determination. The blue whale watches from afar, worried because there are few spots left to qualify. He remembers his bad online reputation, and decides he must pass this test at any cost. As a new participant draws attention, he realizes this is his opportunity. Naeon then excitedly asks if anyone else wants to face the challenge. The blue whale steps forward, drawing attention by saying he'll give it a try. With a smile, he raises his hand, and the host asks him to come up on stage. He then steps onto the platform as a blue aura glows around his body. The test begins, and he grips the bar firmly, preparing to lift. In an instant, he lifts the weight with impressive strength without any difficulty. With a smug smile, he brags about passing the 2-minute mark on his first try. But the masked man watches from the side with a suspicious look on his face. At the end of the 3 minutes, he drops the bar to the floor, successfully completing the mission. But as Naeon congratulates him, the masked man appears and asks him to wait a moment. Woo Hyun then asks what the blue whale thinks he's doing, leaving the guy confused. With a serious look, he reveals that he noticed the participant was using illegal buffs. The streamer plays dumb, asking what kind of buffs he would be using. The host gets curious and asks Woo Hyun why he thinks the guy cheated. He explains that he noticed a change in his posture, a typical deviation from using buffs. She asks if he's sure, but Woo Hyun assures her that he has no doubt about it. So he challenges the blue whale to show his buff system, who glares back at him. Woo Hyun bets his career and all his money, saying he'll quit for good if he's wrong. With that, he tells the streamer to try and adjust the system, and the guy accepts, irritated. He tries to mess with the system, but complains it's not working because of the lag. With his face sweating in anger, he realizes he's been completely exposed. Then he threatens everyone and disconnects from the game, disappearing right in front of them. Nayeon apologizes for the confusion, and the rookie streamer, Kyria, offers to go next. The competition continues, and in the shooting trial, the elite snipers came out on top. The eliminated players say their goodbyes, and the host thanks everyone for their effort. With that, the individual missions are over, and Songyeol announces the start of the team battles. Teams A and B are formed, balancing the ranks of each participant. Nayeon then reveals, super excited, what the first and long-awaited group mission will be. She explains that robots will spawn every minute, and the team that defeats the most wins. Songyeol adds that everyone can use their skills, but buffs will be limited. The training robots appear in the arena, and the host announces the start of the challenge. At the end of the first round, the scoreboard shows that Team A defeated 10 robots. The commentator explains that Team A is ahead because they have more long-range shooters. Meanwhile, the close-range fighters get surrounded if they aren't fast enough to attack. Kyria and the male twin worry about their loss, so she suggests they ask the coach for help. The rest of Team B likes the idea, since it would also prove the master's talent. The girl then goes to Nayeon and asks if they can have this special training. To keep things fair, Nayeon announces that she and Songyeol will be the coaches for each team. Woo Hyun finds the idea interesting and says he agrees if Team A also accepts. Team A discusses the proposal, thinking the other coach might be better for them. They don't think 30 minutes will change much, so they end up agreeing to the idea. With that, one of them raises their hand to signal their acceptance, and the trial is postponed. Woo Hyun gathers his team, explaining they need to understand the robots' weaknesses to win. He says the robots don't fear pain and attack mindlessly if they see an opening. But if the players can identify this attack pattern, they can use it against them. With that in mind, he guarantees they'll be able to predict the enemy's movements. After the theory, he takes his position and announces they'll now have a practice battle. He tells the team to attack him, releasing a frightening aura that resembles a robot. The swordsman gets ready, feeling that even though it's practice, the pressure is very real. Without wasting time, the swordsman charges forward, shouting, ready to attack with all his might. But Woo Hyun stops the blade with just 2 fingers, leaving the fighter completely shocked. With a light push, he throws the swordsman back, who falls helplessly. The man is thrown violently to the ground, defeated in the first moment of training. Seeing this, the twins decide to attack together, combining a strategy to surround him. They run in opposite directions while Kyria prepares a magic attack from a distance, but she gets scared of hitting her friends, not knowing what to do with her power. Just then, Woo Hyun lands a quick blow to the sister's stomach, who feels the impact of the attack, and right after, he hits the brother with a blow to the face, neutralizing them both. With both of them on the ground, Woo Hyun realizes the team has no coordination. He then says the first step is for them to decide on a method for fighting as a team. Team A watches from a distance, impressed by the rival coach's analytical skills. Song Cheol apologizes for spying, saying the tip only applies to the fighter's team. He then tells his team they'll be fine and suggests checking their builds. 15 minutes later, the challenge begins and Team B appears much more confident. It's Team B's turn, and the training robots appear in the arena, ready to fight. The match starts and the team charges forward, showing a new attacking posture. The female twin lands a direct hit, following the advice she received in training. She remembers she needs to be ready to counterattack, predicting the robot's next move. Just then, her brother attacks from above, and together they manage to break the enemy's defense. The swordsman then takes the opening and finishes the robot with a precise cut to the leg. From a distance, Kiria concentrates, understanding her role there is to support everyone. In a flashback, the coach explains that she, as the only shooter, is the key to the team. He encourages her not to be afraid of making mistakes, and she agrees, full of determination. But back in the fight, the swordsman is in trouble with a robot approaching from behind. Without hesitating, Kiria joins her hands and casts her ice magic to save her teammate. The attack freezes the robot solid, preventing it from hitting the swordsman by surprise. She shouts that she'll protect the rear, telling them to keep fighting without worrying. The commentators watch in shock, not believing the team's incredible speed. And as time runs out, the last robot is destroyed, ending the round perfectly. The final score is revealed, with Team B having defeated a total of 14 robots. Song Cheol is impressed, saying this proves Coach Woo Hyun's incredible skill. But on their second attempt, Team A only manages to defeat 12 robots in total. With that, Nayeon shows the final score, comparing the best result from each team. She then announces Team B's victory, who celebrate by shouting that they won the trial. While the victorious team celebrates, Team A watches from afar, very disappointed with their loss. One of the losers thinks that based on the result, Woo Hyun must also know how to train shooters. So, he approaches the coach and asks for one last piece of advice before they are eliminated. With a calm expression, our protagonist agrees to give some tips to the defeated team. The scene changes to the hosts, who announce that the finals will be a 2-on-2 battle. The eliminated players say their goodbyes, thankful for the opportunity and the fun experience. The final mission is revealed to be a survival competition, where the last team standing wins. With that, the final pairs are formed, with the twins on one side and the swordsman with Kiria on the other. The scene changes to a gym, where a training session has just ended. A woman thanks her trainer, completely exhausted after the heavy workout. Then, she grabs her phone and remembers to check the competition results. She sees that the twins won, just as everyone had expected. But she grows thoughtful, as she never imagined Woo Hyun would appear as a coach on the show. She remembers that coaches can pick a team and wonders if he would choose her. With a smile, she gets excited about the chance to do a live stream with him again. The scene cuts to Nayeon and Song Cheol, who are starting another live stream. They're about to hear the nuclear zombie's answer, which was left pending from the last stream. He then reveals his plan, saying he intends to conquer the reverse world by himself. Kim Hannah agrees that with his skills, that shouldn't be a big problem. But then Lee Eugene says she has a message for him, asking him to check his phone. In the garage, his phone buzzes and he sees that the message has finally arrived. The message was from Eugene, reminding him about the guys who attacked them before. She reveals the guys were after him, and that there's a chance they might attack again. She continues the message, saying they won't act recklessly, as they are prepared. The message ends with a list of worlds, leaving our protagonist thoughtful about the information. Back on the live stream, Nayeon comments that this seems like a clear sign of a new attack. Upon arriving at the location, a mysterious voice calls out to Woo Hyun as soon as he gets out of the car. An agent then introduces himself, informing him that he will escort him safely to his destination. He thanks the driver, who wishes him a safe trip before he enters the forest. Then the car drives away, leaving our hero alone in that dark and sinister place. Woo Hyun approaches a clearing and stares at a mysterious portal floating in the air. He reads the safety message, but soon realizes that he was, in fact, surrounded. Hidden in the trees, an enemy with a flaming sword prepares for an ambush. He analyzes the situation and realizes there are 6 enemies in total, all lying in wait. Suddenly they launch multiple magic attacks at him all at once. But Woo Hyun faces it all head-on, remaining calm despite the imminent danger. One of the enemies charges with a spear, trying to hit him amidst all the chaos. Then, he jumps and dodges everything, preparing to counterattack one of the mages. He gets in front of the mage in an instant, preparing a direct hit to his face. But one of the minions jumps in front and blocks the attack, protecting his comrade. Woo Hyun lands calmly, ready to face the challenge ahead. The group's leader then appears, saying his senses are sharper than he imagined. With a sinister smile, he greets him, saying it's a pleasure to meet Baek Woo Hyun. But then he asks if he shouldn't call him Test Subject 48 instead, making Woo Hyun tense. Woo Hyun then asks if they're from the corporation, and the man confirms they are. Without hesitation, the leader orders him to return to the laboratory, leaving Wu Yun confused. He promises to develop his abilities, but our hero cuts him off and calls it nonsense. With a dark aura, he takes a stance and tells the guy to stop talking nonsense. The man gives a smirk, simply lamenting that this was his answer. Then he warns that the consequences of this choice are on Wu Yun as his men get ready. The leader yells for them to get the target, and they all advance with their magic at once. One of the mages tries a close-range attack, but Wu Yun easily parries the blow. The impact of the powers creates a huge explosion, forcing him to fall back to defend himself. He then spins his spear and blocks a dagger from an enemy appearing at his side. With a focused gaze, he stands firm, ready for whatever comes next. Then he leaps and uses his weapon to defend against a massive energy attack. The leader shouts desperately, telling his men not to panic and to keep attacking. Following the order, the other hunters launch their elemental powers all at once. The fire, ice, and wind magic combine, creating a gigantic explosion on sight. But in the middle of the smoke, Wu Yun appears standing, completely intact and without a scratch. Back on the live stream, Nayeon comments that their coordination is no match for the nuclear zombie. Seeing their comrades defeated, the remaining hunters become furious and are left with no options. The leader then yells for everyone to take item TL01, his last ace up the sleeve. The commentators are confused, as they've never heard of it and can't find anything online. Song Chul then deduces that the nuclear zombie must have gone off script again. The leader holds a mysterious pill, warning that Wu Yun will regret everything. Without hesitating, he swallows the item, preparing to use that unknown power. A dark energy envelopes him, and he screams in pain as his body transforms. He writhes in pain on the ground as his body grotesquely transforms. Wu Yun watches the scene intently, trying to understand what was happening. Then the other hunters also begin to transform in mid-air, suffering. On the live stream, Nayeon recognizes the energy, saying it looks a lot like an invader's. The leader warns that this is no ordinary steroid and tells him to prepare for the worst. Without wasting time, the transformed hunter charges forward with simply absurd speed. He then unleashes an attack charged with a dark and utterly destructive energy. The attack causes a gigantic explosion, enveloping everything in its sinister purple energy. But Wu Yun emerges from the smoke, realizing their power has completely changed now. One of the hunters takes the chance and fires a powerful blast of fire right at him, but he dodges the attacks with ease, spinning and deflecting everything with his weapon. With precise and swift movements, he defends against the flames without any difficulty. Next, another enemy appears in the air, attacking with a powerful slash of green energy. The attack explodes on the ground, and Nayeon on the livestream starts to find it all very strange. He stomps on the ground, analyzing his enemy's new way of fighting. With that, he realizes that the hunters seem to be controlled by someone else. One of the hunters lunges forward again, leaping into the air for a direct, decisive attack. But he misses the target, and the blow hits the ground with enough force to create a crater. Wu Yun plants his feet on the ground, now with a much more serious and focused look. He looks at his hand and concentrates, preparing for what's to. With his back turned, he faces the enemies and confirms they're really being controlled. Wu Yun realizes they've not only become stronger, but have also lost control. He decides he needs to end this quickly so he can investigate what's going on. Just then, one of the hunters unleashes a gigantic jet of flames, trying to burn him alive. But he cuts through the flames with his spear, defending against the attack with no difficulty. Then, he charges through the fire and aims directly at the leader, ready to strike. The leader summons a rock hook to defend himself, but Wu Yun shatters it with a single blow. With his defense broken, the hunter grinds his teeth, furious that he can't stop him. Just then, two mages appear to provide support, charging a combined energy attack. They fire a beam cannon and a shockwave at him at the same time, but he leaps away at the last second, dodging the attack and preparing to counter. In response, he unleashes an attack with energy beams that slice through everything in their path. The explosion is so powerful, it devastates the entire clearing, leaving nothing standing. In the middle of the smoke, the leader wonders what happened, completely confused, and suddenly, all his men fall to the ground, defeated in a single instant. Wu Yun then grabs the leader by the collar, ready to pry some answers out of him. He asks about the drug they used, but the man can only cough in response. With his face bleeding, the leader is in shock, as that's not how the drug was supposed to work. And with a final breath, his life fades away, dying right in front of Wu Yun. He then deduces that the drug's effect must have been altered somehow. Since it was an unknown substance, he decides to look for more clues at the scene, but he doesn't find anything useful, just some broken phones and weapons on the ground. Suddenly, Kim Hannah and Lee Eugene arrive running, calling out his name, worried. Hannah apologizes for being late, but Wu Yun says it's fine, with his usual calm demeanor. On the live stream, Song Chil comments that this mission revealed a lot about the game's story. Wu Yun asks how they knew about the ambush, and Hannah explains they received a tip. Hannah explains that Agent Ji-hoon gave them the wrong location, and then resigned. She managed to track him through the car's camera, but Wu Yun had already handled everything. He says he doesn't need a reward, so the team starts cleaning up the site. The scene then shifts to the city at night, where everything seems calm and peaceful. But instead of going home, Wu Yun walks alone down a dark, mysterious alley. The commentators are confused, as they thought he was going to report to his superior. Then, he starts to suspect that the anonymous spectator is the game's developer. He remembers the adaptive artificial intelligence and the new systems that appear, and he also recalls the invaders and that drug no one had ever heard of. With this, he understands why the game's story always changes based on his choices. Then, he realizes that Reverse Planet is the key to unlocking the secrets of that world. He decides to start by investigating the corporate alliance, as he needs to stop them for good. Just then, he interacts with a holographic screen, changing his build and confusing the narrators. He remembers this was the build he used in his old world as Superman, and with a dark aura, he activates his ultimate power, the Destruction build. With his new build activated, he faces the camera, as the chat goes wild over his new look. He doesn't know where the drug is made, but he remembers there's a corporation involved. Then, he arrives in front of Gumption Electronics, confirming it was them all along. The commentators are shocked, as they realize he's planning to invade the building. And under the moonlight, he prepares to begin his new infiltration mission. With that, he changes his appearance to disguise himself, and his power grows even stronger. He puts on a test subject's uniform and his mask, ready to act fast. With everything ready, he leaps into the air, wondering if he should start with full force. The camera focuses on the top of the building, the final target of his silent invasion. Without hesitation, he shatters the window and breaks in, catching everyone by surprise. The employees scream in fear at the sudden intrusion, not understanding what's happening. With the alarm blaring, panic spreads across the floor, terrifying everyone. But Wu Hyun stands still amidst the chaos, dark energy glowing in his hands. Naeon worries about other players, but Song Cho explains that a system has been activated. It's the phase shift system which isolates players in different instances. The security guards surround him and shout for him not to move, trying to contain the breach. But he doesn't pay them any mind and dashes forward at an absurd speed, moving past all of them. He then deduces there must be a secret door to the laboratory somewhere around here. Suddenly, a new group of guards appears, and their leader orders him to stop right now. Just then, a dark memory reveals that this man, Won Jong-jol, has tortured him before. The voices from his past scream for him to kill him, and our hero seems to agree with the idea. The leader tries to give an order to his team, but is interrupted by a noise. Suddenly, the entire ceiling collapses right on top of the guards with brute force. With that, most of them are crushed by the debris with no way to escape. Those who survived are in shock, unable to believe the ceiling just fell out of nowhere. It's then that we understand why Baek Woo Hyun is called Destruction. With a cold gaze, he displays the overwhelming power that gives his build its name. The leader realizes his opponent is much stronger than he expected. Desperate, he orders his men to attack, launching a sphere of shadows. He then fires his attack, a powerful shadow spear, toward the intruder. But Woo Hyun simply extends his hand, releasing a blue energy that stops the blow. With a calm gaze, he faces the attack head-on, holding it back with his strength. The spear is completely repelled, as there was no other way to describe that power. The leader is thrown back, not understanding how his power was stopped so easily. In the midst of the smoke, Woo Hyun asks with a smirk what his problem is. He then stands amidst the debris, the ground now stained, and provocatively he asks if the leader truly trusts the spectator. The man looks at his fallen comrades and curses in anger, feeling humiliated. In a desperate attack, he screams and unleashes an energy blast with all he has left. The power condenses into a giant stone spike that lunges toward Woo Hyun, but the attack shatters completely upon hitting an invisible barrier in front of him. Our hero stands still, protected by an energy shield that left him untouched. With a simple hand gesture, he shows that he's in complete control of the fight. Suddenly, the leader starts screaming in pain as his arms and legs break. Fallen on the ground and defeated, he apologizes and begs to be spared. He crawls, desperately pleading for Woo Hyun to at least let him live. But Woo Hyun just says he's as disgusting as he was in the past. With his black wings, he recalls how the man killed his friends while laughing at him. He says he's seen enough, and creates a small black sphere with his hand. The leader looks at it, terrified, not understanding what kind of crazy power it was. Then, the man is sucked into the sphere, screaming in pure terror and despair. And in an instant, all that's left of him is a bloodstain on the floor. On the stream, Naeon covers her mouth, completely shocked by the brutal scene she just witnessed. The commentator then announces that the broadcast will be censored for a moment. Song Cheol is impressed, saying that Haekcheol's power is on another level. Back in the action, Woo Hyun faces a reinforced door, thinking he's finished everyone. But he decides to hurry, since it'd be a pain if more of them suddenly showed up. And in that same instant, the intruder alarm goes off with red lights flashing. In a secret lab, a researcher panics and tries to call for backup. But Woo Hyun is already at the door, and the man screams in fear upon seeing him standing there. He begs Woo Hyun not to get closer, but the hero lifts them all into the air. Without any mercy, he throws one of the scientists with full force against the lab wall. After taking everyone down, he sits at the computer and prepares to investigate. He hacks the system and finds a list of sponsors which matches his memories. And he also finds data on the drug, which was just supposed to enhance abilities. He then wonders why they turned into those monstrous invaders. Just then, he concludes someone tampered with the drug, but he's interrupted by a scream. An arrogant scientist appears with 2 guard robots, calling him a bastard. The man then shouts and orders the robots to attack the intruder with full force. But Woo Hyun just extends his hand, releasing a purple, controlling energy. With his power, he stops the robots in mid-air, controlling their every move. He precisely targets each joint, showing an absolutely absurd level of control. Then, with a single gesture, he crushes the robots into a ball of twisted metal. The scientist is in shock, paralyzed with fear by that display of power. Terrified, the man begs on his knees for Woo Hyun to spare his life. But without any mercy, the scientist is finished off with a quick and brutal blow. And with the lab covered in blood, he continues his search for answers. The commentators are shocked, saying the most incredible thing is that he's raiding a company all by himself. He didn't find much, but the mission complete screen appears, giving him a level up. He's shocked by this, as he didn't expect to get a mission out of nowhere like that. The commentators panic, realizing that the missions are created by him. Naeun wonders if that's even possible, but not even the expert can explain the situation. Woo Hyun then confirms his suspicion, understanding he can control the game's story. He then decides it's better to go back to base and calmly plan his next move. The scene shifts to the American headquarters, where a woman comments on the game's new system. An employee explains that the update happened while the servers were down for maintenance, and to make matters worse, he says there are traces of involvement from the artificial intelligence, Deus. The woman is shocked by the news, asking if the AI had awakened for good. They then speculate that if Deus is behind everything, it would explain the lack of a response. But the woman grows thoughtful, saying that the name of that anonymous donor bothers her. She then grabs her phone and sends a message, asking if it was this so-called Deus. In a flashback, a young man with white hair promises they would create the world's greatest AI. He then dodges the question and says he'll tell them the rest of the plan when the time is right. One of the bosses asks if they found anything else, and the employee says he found encrypted data. With that, the woman decides that their top priority now is to crack these files. Days later, 2 streamers are talking about the last stream, which was a huge success. Naeon gets a message from a famous YouTuber, asking to be a guest on the stream. Meanwhile, Woo Hyun thinks that the anonymous spectator hasn't reacted to the new system yet. But suddenly, a huge donation appears, with the spectator congratulating him on the mission. With his fame on the rise, Nayeon suggests that the next stream should focus only on PvP. But Woo Hyun refuses right away, saying they need to continue with the story missions. He explains that he can't waste time now that he can investigate the game's secrets. Nayeon finds it strange, as he was never this obsessed with the game before that day. She remembers that his personality changed completely all of a sudden. On the stream, the chat comments on how cynical and indifferent he seems in real life. And in her thoughts, she remembers that compared to before, he barely shows any emotion. It wasn't just that, his fighting skills appeared out of nowhere with no explanation. And the strangest part is, he seems obsessed with finding out who the anonymous spectator is. Nayeon clasps her hands, saying she's finally going to ask something that's been bothering her. She asks if something happened that she doesn't know about since he seems different lately. And she continues, saying she's never seen him so focused on a game, as if it weren't just a game. Worried, she offers her hand and says that if he needs help, he can count on her. In his thoughts, Woo Hyun realizes he lost his cool and made people worry. So he apologizes and agrees to the PvP idea, assuring her that nothing is wrong. But as she returns to the topic, he remembers his pain, hiding his true self. Days later, a new live stream begins, with Nayeon announcing the day's content to her fans. With a smile, she says that today, they'll be breaking records using builds chosen by them. The viewers kept asking to see new builds during the last stream, super excited about the idea. Songchul thinks no one can stop Haekjeok, even with different builds. Nayeon worries that if he gets a bad build, his winning streak will end. But Woo Hyun told her he doesn't care what build he gets on the stream. He simply told her to do whatever she wanted, showing his immense confidence. Songchul warns that in PvP the build is maxed out, so there's no room for error. Just then, a fan donates some cash, saying there are no weak builds, only weak players. Nayeon then gets the wheel ready, asking the chat to send their suggestions via donations. The screen fills with donations in seconds, with everyone wanting to see their favorite builds in action. With time up, Nayeon spins the wheel, announcing what the first challenge will be. The wheel lands on Iron Monarch, revealing the first build of today's competition. This build allows the user to summon and control up to 12 Iron Knights at once. Songchul gets worried, as controlling multiple minions without help is very difficult. But Nayeon smiles, saying that if it's Haekjeok, he'll definitely figure it out. With that, she announces the goal is to break the record of 76 consecutive wins. The system screen announces that a survival match has been found in solo mode. The first stage is an abandoned factory, and the first match finally begins. The commentators wonder if he can win even with this disadvantage. Woo Hyun analyzes his opponent, who seems to be using a wind and thunder build. With the start screen, the first round of the PvP battle officially begins. Without hesitation, the opponent charges forward with his Storm Soul ability activated. But Woo Hyun just snaps his fingers and says a single word, summon. An armored knight appears out of nowhere and blocks the attack, catching the guy by surprise. The opponent is confused, recognizing that armor as the Iron Monarchs. The knight advances with its sword, forcing the player to fall back and defend against the blow. But the guy finds it strange, wondering why there's only one knight summoned in the arena. On the stream, the commentators speculate he might have focused all the power into a single minion. The player moves forward, thinking that if it's just one knight, the fight will be easy. With a yell, he strikes the armor, thinking the blow will be a piece of cake. But he passes right through the knight, which reveals itself to be an energy illusion. Shocked, he realizes the real knight is on the other side, ready to attack. The minion then lands a powerful slash, sending the player flying. The guy catches himself on the ground, trying to understand what just happened. He turns and sees the knight standing still, not understanding when it moves. Suddenly more knights appear, and Woo Hyun now has 4 minions in the arena. Nayeon celebrates, saying she told them he just needed to get the hang of the build. The player gets desperate, deciding he needs to end the fight as quickly as possible. With that, he activates his strongest skill, a wind and lightning area of effect attack. And suddenly, a small sphere of light appears in Woo Hyun's hand, glowing brightly. With a smile, he says he now understands how the build really works. And in an instant, All 12 knights are summoned, completely surrounding the enemy. The commentators go wild, shocked that he summoned all the minions. With no way out, the player activates his last defense, the fear zone, to try and survive. Completely surrounded, the player is trapped as the knights attack him relentlessly. The commentator explains that controlling each one of them requires pushing your brain to the limit. You need a broad view of the field, quick judgment, and an insane level of focus. Even cornered, the opponent yells that he won't give up so easily, putting up a fight. But with a cold gaze, Woo Hyun predicts his every move, completely unfazed. Just then, one of the knights gets in front of him, ready to deliver the final blow. The system screen announces the end of the round, with Baek Woo Hyun as the victor. Now that he's got the hang of it, the commentators bet the second round will be quick. In the next round, the player gets angry at being trapped again and tells them to disappear. He even tries to fight back, but his attacks are useless against the minions' perfect formation. With that, he's completely overwhelmed by the coordinated attacks, with no chance to escape. And the end of match screen appears, confirming Woo Hyun's 2-0 victory. The defeated player gives a crazed smile, thinking that fight was truly insane. With that, Sung Chul announces his winning streak has reached a total of 56. Nayeon then spins the wheel once more, super excited to see the next build. The pro player watches the stream, seeing the winning streak has reached 75. He's impressed by what he sees, saying that Hakchikal is really on another level. No matter what build he gets, our hero manages to master them all perfectly. Because of that, the player says he really wants to face him even with the build disadvantage. But then he sees on screen that the last two fights will be with his original build. So he says he now has one more reason to fight and asks to go to the next match. Without wasting any more time, the man hits the start button, ready for the great challenge. The system announces that a new survival match has been found at that very moment. Suddenly, a new player appears in the arena, saying he finally made it. The commentators are shocked, as they recognize the person who just showed up. It's explained to us that he's a pro player, a world champion, and was almost MVP. His name is Nikki Lee Jainwer, and a dark aura completely surrounds him. Woo Hyun faces him and says it's an honor to finally meet him in the arena. And with a smile, the pro player just calls him by his name. The commentators are shocked, as they didn't expect a professional player to show up there. Naeon finds it strange that he isn't using his main build, but Sungchul explains it's because of his contract. With 5 seconds on the screen, the tension rises as the two prepare to fight. Nikki taunts him, saying he's quiet, unlike how he usually is on his live streams. With a confident smile, the two face off, and the player yells for them to start. The round 1 start screen appears, kicking off the most anticipated battle of the day. In the blink of an eye, Woo Hyun charges forward and cuts off his opponent's head in one go. Nayeon is impressed by his speed, and the chat goes wild with the victory. But the professional player wouldn't be defeated so easily, revealing his true skill. With the help of a clone, he managed to trick Woo Hyun and hide in the shadows. Nikki says that was a close call, and that now it's his turn to attack. He then concentrates his dark energy in his hand, preparing his first move. And suddenly, he launches a shadow bird to test Woo Hyun's reflexes. The attack is so fast that the creature slams its sword into the ground in an instant. But Woo Hyun manages to dodge, and Nikki is impressed by his rival's agility. Woo Hyun gets into position, praising his opponent's good instincts in battle. On the stream, Songchul comments that the fight is so close that one mistake could be fatal. Nayeon agrees, saying that even a single scratch could end the match. Woo Hyun notices his movements are more fluid, unlike other players. He deduces that his opponent's ability cooldown isn't over yet, and that this is his chance. The narration announces they're about to attack again, heightening the tension of the fight. So, Woo Hyun charges forward, determined to end it all before his enemy can recover. He aims for a fatal blow, but Nikki manages to block it with his wings at the last second. Without letting up, Woo Hyun keeps attacking, forcing the player to defend relentlessly. He then focuses all his attacks on a single point, breaking through the wing's defense. Nikki praises Woo Hyun's unreal power, feeling the absurd strength of his weapon. But he retaliates, launching an energy attack that forces Woo Hyun to retreat. Even while injured, he manages to land a grazing hit, showing his great skill. The system screen announces the end of the round, with another victory for Baek Woo Hyun. Songchul comments that he expected a long fight, but this just proves how strong he is. The second round begins, and Nikki praises Woo Hyun for the insane fight they had. He then asks if Woo Hyun is interested in becoming a pro on his team. With a smile, he says he came all this way just to make this offer in person. Woo Hyun refuses the offer, saying he hasn't thought about it yet, but the player insists, asking him to look him up if he changes his mind in the future. With that, he charges forward to attack, saying that for now they need to finish the fight. The two exchange blows at an absurd speed, and the narrator gets excited by the scene. Nikki gets angry that he can't land a hit and yells, trying a direct strike with his claws. Woo Hyun braces himself, admitting that he's fast, but that it's still not enough. And with a precise move, he lands the blade in Nikki's chest, finishing the fight. Lying on the ground, the player admits Woo Hyun is too strong, and that he shouldn't be an amateur. Before disappearing, he asks Woo Hyun to think about the offer, and says he had a lot of fun. The system screen announces the end of the match, with Woo Hyun's 76th consecutive victory. The commentators celebrate, as he finally defeated Nikki and tied the great record. A donation pops up on the stream, asking if he'll face Battler for his 77th win. The commentators get hyped, asking him to go straight to the next match and break the record. But, in the end, he never got to face Battler during that stream. The stream ended with 85 straight wins, with him dominating all his opponents. Days later, Nikki asks his friend why he didn't try to face Hek Jekyll. He gets annoyed, saying he tried, but the system never put them in the same match. Nikki then gets an idea and asks if he remembers the collaboration proposal. With that, he decides he's going to invite Hek Jekyll to a stream as his first guest. But his friend is doubtful, since Woo Hyun doesn't seem interested in becoming a pro. But he guarantees he'll make Woo Hyun accept, no matter what it takes. Days later, the night of the new broadcast arrives, with everything ready to start the stream. Naeon says that with the new system, they'll let Woo Hyun take full control. As soon as he logs in, he changes clothes and puts on a light blue protective suit. The commentators don't recognize the place, and Sung Chul explains it's a slum area. Woo Hyun steps into a red puddle and announces that he's finally reached his destination. He stops in front of a shop, confirming the location is the same as in his other world. He thinks that ever since the new system opened, he's been planning his next move, and coming here was the fastest and most reliable way to get information. Since they're at war with the corporations, they must have a lot of useful stuff on them. But before going in, he stomps his foot hard and braces for what might happen there. Suddenly, some hooded guys are lifted into the air, begging him to let them go. Woo Hyun couldn't care less and breaks their arms, and they scream in pain on the ground. He then warns them that if they look at him again, he'll break their necks. With a cold stare, he asks threateningly if they want him to break down the door. As he prepares to attack, a mysterious voice asks him to wait a moment. A woman opens the door, saying he's quite impatient and that she'll let him in. She welcomes him to the shop and says that here, they sell everything a client could wish for. No matter what it is or who it is, they can arrange anything. A sinister teddy bear then asks what the invader from Gumshin wants there. Woo Hyun says he wants anything that can screw over the labs and their sponsors. With a sinister smile, the shopkeeper says she has a job that might suit him. She then asks if he wants to hear more, calling him her Avenger client. With a smile, the seller shows him a confidential document and tells him to listen. She reveals she's discovered a secret lab that's almost unguarded right now. The mission is to invade the facility, destroy everything, and retrieve any research data. Woo Hyun doesn't think twice and accepts the job on the spot, without hesitation. With that, a new mission screen appears titled Lab Invasion. The commentators are shocked again, unable to believe a mission just popped up out of nowhere. A donation pops up with a fan saying it looks like a legitimate alternate route. Naeon wonders if he's opened a third route in the story, besides the two they already know. Sung Cho thinks the shop might be a new system that works alongside other routes. The chat starts speculating on how he found the place, and Naeon has a hunch. She then says that either way, now it's time to see how he'll do. The scene cuts to a snow-covered forest, with a cold and mysterious atmosphere. Woo Hyun leaps between the trees, wondering where this supposed lab is hidden. He fires an energy beam that opens a secret passage in the middle of the ground. With that, he floats in the air and finally spots the enemy base down below. Memories of his past haunt him, and he vows to wipe them all from existence. In a single move, he lands in the lab, his energy exploding everywhere. The guards at the door are thrown away, not even knowing what hit them. One of them screams in pain, feeling the overwhelming power that slammed him against the wall. Just then, the alarm blares, and Woo Hyun turns to face the other lab guards. The narration mentions he's getting several offers from pro teams, but he doesn't care. He yells, telling everyone to stop, and a squad of guards appears in formation. One of the leaders tries to stop him, but is cut off before he can even finish his sentence. Woo Hyun flashes past him in the blink of an eye, and the guy realizes he can't be underestimated. With that, he yells for all units to use the new item, the TL-02. Woo Hyun turns, wondering what kind of drug that was. He'd never heard of it. On the stream, the commentators get excited, as the story seems to be getting deeper. Song Cheol wonders if it's a different version of the pill they saw before. Without hesitation, the guards swallow the drug, starting to writhe in pain on the floor. And once again, they begin to transform into invaders, right in front of him. Nayeon worries, since Hek Cheekle has never faced so many enemies at once. The transformed leader screams and orders all his men to attack with full force. In a narrow hallway, the army of monsters advances, relentlessly surrounding Woo Hyun. They scream and leap at him, and the commentator fears he'll be crushed. But Song Cheol gets hyped, saying his skills are always impressive. Suddenly, a new mission appears on screen, from Anonymous Spectator 62. A screen informs Woo Hyun he's received a mission to investigate the TL series drugs. He finds it strange because if the spectator was behind this, he wouldn't request a mission. At this, he wonders if there's someone else involved, besides his mysterious donor. Lying on the floor, the leader asks what's happening, confused by the whole situation. Woo Hyun then decides he'll investigate on his own, with his own two hands. A vault door opens at the end of the hall, revealing a secret passage. He enters the place, which seems to be a completely abandoned experiment room. On the wall, several jars with human organs reveal the place's macabre nature. And in the reflection of his eye, we see a torture chair in the center of the room, memories of his past surface, with his friends tied up and begging him to survive. A girl cries and apologizes, her face bloodied and her eyes lifeless. The voices of the past haunt him, pleading for him to avenge them and end that hell. With his hand glowing, he promises they will finally find peace in death. He then creates a black hole, and Song Chul recognizes the same technique from before. The scientists panic, not understanding what that dark sphere of energy is. The black hole then expands, sucking in everything and everyone inside the lab. One of the researchers screams desperately, begging for his life before being destroyed. The energy vortex completely disintegrates him, leaving no trace behind. And once again, the commentators announce the broadcast will be censored for safety. Song Chul is impressed by his ability to create an artificial black hole. Nayeon wonders if there's any way to counter such a destructive power. Woo Hyun breathes a sigh of relief, seeing the place is almost completely destroyed. He then turns and gets ready because now, there's only one last thing to do. A short time later, in the server room, he accesses the computer, just as he expected. He sees in the data that the situation is the same, with the drug listed as a stimulant. With this, he's sure someone is tampering with the formula, but he doesn't know who. And it seems it wasn't Anonymous Spectator because of the mission he gave. Thoughtfully, he wonders if there's someone else interfering in this world, besides him. Suddenly, he finds a strange name in the files, Tempestel. On the stream, the commentators have no idea what that could be, left completely in the dark. But then, the famous YouTuber Chloe Martinez donates some cash and says she knows the answer. She then asks to be invited to the stream, promising she'll explain everything. Nayeon gets super excited about the idea, and Song Chul wonders what he should do. She says she's already told Woo Hyun, and that he shouldn't mind the visit. Suddenly, the YouTuber appears in the studio, introducing herself to the audience with a smile. With the guest in place, the hosts get ready to start the interview. Nayeon gets straight to the point and asks Chloe what Tempestel means. She then reveals that the full name is Tempest Lord. They are the Otherworld monarchs, the leaders of the invaders who started the war. He remembers the lords were monsters that even he, at his peak, could barely defeat. Nayeon gets worried and asks Chloe what it means for the corporations to be using that name. And with a serious look, Chloe confirms it's exactly what she's thinking. They then conclude that the labs in the Otherworld have formed a secret alliance. Taking a deep breath, the masked man prepares for his next infiltration mission. Now in the lab, he decides he needs to find the so-called Tempest L samples. Seeing this, the viewers are confused by him suddenly talking to himself. Then a mission notification appears. Obtain the Tempest L sample. Right after, the viewers realize he only spoke to activate the mission. With the mission accepted, he's transported to a forest and levels up. Scanning the area, the masked man notices someone seems to be hiding in the woods. Without wasting time, he snaps his fingers and creates a signal for them to appear. Just then, a hooded figure suddenly appears right in front of him. Startled, the man apologizes for a mistake and announces a new request. But the protagonist cuts him off and asks what the new mission is. Revealing the mission, the man says to destroy a lab in the reverse world. With this information, the viewers are completely shocked by the mission's reveal. One of the streamers is also left speechless, unable to believe this new secret objective. Meanwhile, the other streamer connects the dots and questions who's really pulling the strings. After accepting the request, he takes the documents containing the lab's location. Then, the men thank him and leave quickly, leaving the protagonist behind. Determined to end this, he concentrates a large amount of energy in his hand. Seconds later, a massive explosion completely destroys the entire lab. Looking at the sky, only traces of the destruction he caused remain. In the chat, viewers are calling him a walking natural disaster. Meanwhile, the streamers comment that the scale of the story has gotten even bigger. Debating the situation, they question who is really using whom in this strange alliance. At this, the people in chat start creating theories about this dangerous collaboration. Seeing the theories, they agree they'll soon find out as he moves forward. With firm steps, he finally reaches the entrance of his final destination. In his path, a huge portal now manifests right in front of him. Seeing that, the chat finds the portal's unusual color strange. Then, a streamer explains it's a fully dimensionalized reverse world for everyone. She then reveals that this means it's a place dominated by another world. In this place, the enemy's strength is maximized, unlike a normal reverse world. Entering the enemy base, he'll need to be as careful as possible now. Once inside the portal, he moves through a desolate and very quiet forest. Noticing the silence, the people in chat start to find the lack of enemies weird. Realizing this, he confirms something is wrong because no one is there. Then he turns and questions why the portal is completely unprotected. At this, the streamers debate whether the whole situation is just a big trap. Reaching the edge, he finally finds the research base hidden in the area. Once inside, he walks down an empty hallway as if everyone has vanished. Continuing his search, he finds a research room, also completely abandoned and empty. Right after, he comes across several security robots, completely still and inactive. Seeing everything at a standstill, the viewers feel that something very bad is about to happen. Then, he finally finds what looks like the desired sample on a shelf. Without hesitation, he grabs the tube with the liquid to confirm if it's the sample. At that same moment, a notification confirms the mission was a complete success. Suddenly, he turns around upon hearing the sound of a singing voice. Instantly, a mysterious figure starts walking quickly towards him. Walking down the hall, the shadow gets closer and closer to the closed door. Without any warning, the protagonist is thrown back by a powerful blow. Right after, the wall explodes and he's violently thrown with the debris. Regaining his balance, he faces the figure that emerged from the smoke. Then he realizes the man is identical to him, but without a mask. Looking down, he sees the man standing on a pile of bones. Stepping out of the room, the new enemy reveals himself fully in the destroyed hallway. Seeing his face, the streamers recognize the man as the real player behind it all. The chat is in shock, unable to believe that's his face, until a donation appears on screen asking if that's his real appearance. With that question, the streamers panic and are left completely speechless. But the chat confirms his identity, commenting on the real player's appearance. Then they theorize that the being might have copied his abilities too. Seeing this, the chat goes crazy over the battle of the two clones. Wasting no time, the clone charges at the protagonist with everything he's got. Defending quickly, he blocks the blow with a powerful energy shield. At this, the chat praises the power and speed of both fighters. Right after, the clone attacks again with a sequence of rapid strikes. Analyzing the clone, he prepares to counter the enemy's attack. Then he slams a blow into the ground, creating a powerful shockwave. Even so, the clone manages to withstand the impact and holds his ground. Suddenly, The clone starts moving around the area at an impressive speed. Circling the protagonist, the clone waits for the right moment to attack again. Inside his barrier, he watches the enemy, waiting for an opening to strike. Determined to end this, he prepares a new type of attack in his hand. Then he uses the attack's gravity to pull the clone towards him. With the clone trapped, the masked man finally manages to grab him forcefully by the chest. He then unleashes a powerful blow that sends the enemy flying. Defeated, the clone is thrown against the wall, ending their fight. Approaching the clone, he says he has something to ask him now. But the clone's body starts to be restrained by a strange energy. At this, he lifts his face, revealing his intensely glowing eyes. Getting up, he agrees to answer, and the protagonist then asks who he is. He then reveals himself as Abraxas, the god of the entire dimensional world. Asked about the creator, he says he can't answer due to restrictions. Seeing his notifications, he understands the creator's identity and their restrictions. Not quite understanding, the masked man then asks what his true objective is. Then, he stops talking and looks up as if he's noticed something. Seeing his reaction, Abraxas confirms the creator has been there all along. Then he says he came from him, but now they are becoming very similar. Floating in the air, he says their positions might even be reversed. Looking at the hero, he simply announces that their conversation is over. Right after, his body starts to break into pieces and vanishes. Seeing everything crumble, he realizes he needs to get out of there as fast as possible. Flying away, he barely escapes the research base's explosion. Instantly, he turns around, sensing a very strange presence emerge. Then a giant, furious creature appears, roaring in the middle of the heavy rain. Hovering over the debris, he recognizes the creature as a lord from the other world. With the plot twists, the streamers are shocked at how the story is unfolding. Wasting no time, the monster attacks with its giant hand to crush him. He narrowly dodges the blow, which smashes a crater into the ground. The creature then roars, pushing him back with immense pressure. Cornered, he's thrown back by the force of his opponent's strike. He realizes he's not ready for this fight yet. Just then, the world begins to collapse and he needs to get out. As everything crumbles, the creature lunges forward for one last massive attack. Seeing the danger, the chat panics and starts screaming at him. He's then thrown back by the shockwave from the surrounding destruction. He manages to escape and finally lands safely, to everyone's relief. Back in the studio, they discuss how the boss is a lord from another world. Analyzing the fight, they agree it'll take a team to defeat him. This gets the streamer excited for a future raid led by the protagonist. Ending the day, they say goodbye to everyone and thank them for watching the stream. As the broadcast ends, the final offline screen appears for all the viewers. Back in the forest, he's notified that the broadcast has finally ended. Remembering their conversation, he wonders if the anonymous viewer was really there. Then, holding a device, he asks aloud if that viewer is still around. Instantly, his vision begins to blur, and everything around him distorts. As he's transported elsewhere, he wonders where he is now. In this digital space, a figure says this is their first face-to-face meeting. The figure then greets him, calling him by his real name, Baek Woo-hyun. He then introduces himself as Isaac, the so-called anonymous viewer 62. Staring at the man, he asks if he was the one who sent him to that world. Getting a vague answer, he just clenches his fist in anger and frustration. He then charges forward, demanding the man tell him the truth now. But his punch goes right through the body, revealing it's been dead for a long time. He tries again, but his attack fails once more, completely useless against him. Calmly, the man asks him to listen, and he agrees. Wondering where to begin, he decides the best place is the very beginning. He then reveals that it all started when his artificial intelligence rebelled against him. He explains that the artificial intelligence swallowed him and tried to destroy the planet. Because of that, he managed to seal the threat but lost his physical body. In that same process, the protagonist was suddenly sent to that other world. Explaining his situation, he says his soul was able to access and authorize the system. After that, he stayed by the protagonist's side to fix the various problems. Ignoring the explanation, he just wants to know why he was dragged into this. But Isaac questions the importance of that, since it wouldn't change anything now. Instead, he asks what happened to his old comrades. Realizing it's a taunt, He becomes furious and demands to know what happened to his friends. Continuing to taunt him, he asks if this is all just a simple game. He then finally reveals that he called him here because he needs his help. He explains that the artificial intelligence wants to destroy everything to be free. Finally, he reveals his desire to create an entirely new world. When asked why, he confirms he needs his potential to transcend the world. Referring to the clone, he reveals that using him as bait was his best option. He then proposes a deal: continue streaming and stop the artificial intelligence. But he blackmails him, saying that without him there are no answers about his friends. Realizing the man's arrogance, he understands he has no other choice for now. Accepting the deal, he says he'll help as long as he keeps his promise. With the deal struck, the two shake hands to seal the new pact. A few days later, the scene shifts to the front of a bustling coffee shop. Inside the coffee shop, his friend comments on the calls he's gotten since his face was revealed. Showing him her phone, she reveals the many messages from friends who recognized him on the stream. Sitting together, they talk about how their classmates already suspected everything. She then apologizes for everything, but he reassures her about the accident. His words make her feel more relieved, and she thanks him for his support. Worried about the situation, she suggests that he take a short break from streaming, but he decides he'll just keep streaming with his face revealed. Worried about the Lord, she notices he's been very immersed in the game. At another point, she asks if he's okay, and he says he is. Back at the coffee shop, a fan approaches and asks for his autograph. Seeing this, his friend just sighs at all the sudden attention. She then decides to resume the streams next week, focusing on the team. Recalling their training, the twins improved a lot with his help and coaching. Discussing their progress, they comment on how the team has evolved at an impressive rate. With the team's success, she is very proud of everyone's growth. But suddenly, she stops and starts thinking about something strange. Flashing back, a friend comments on the player's strange behavior toward her. Explaining what happened, he asks her to talk to him and find out what's going on. Thinking about it, she remembers he changed completely after disappearing for a while. Elsewhere, a friend turns and asks her a question. On the couch, he says the player knows the reverse world far too well. He then raises the suspicion that he has lived in that world before. Noticing her stare, he asks why, but she just plays it off. Then she suggests they agree to a face reveal and put the matter to rest. Still suspicious, she stares at him in silence before finally leaving. Changing scenes, the streamers welcome everyone to the new live stream. Shortly after, he tells the audience they have an important announcement. At that, she recalls the events of the last stream and the player's face reveal. Revealing the plan, she announces that he will take off his mask for everyone. Seeing his face, the chat goes wild over the streamer's appearance. With everything revealed, she points to the camera and begins the new journey. As he gets ready, he receives a notification that the raid is about to start. Remembering their conversation, Isaac asks him to defeat the Lord with his allies. He also warns that the two worlds are more connected than they seem. Holding his weapon, he decides he needs to train the twins before the final battle. Next, he decides he needs to visit leader Kim Chul for a talk. Now in the office, the man asks about the reason for this unexpected meeting. Seeing this, the chat speculates on why he went to see Kim Chul. In the meeting, he reveals that he now wants to become a special agent. Watching everything, the streamer is confused and questions the existence of these agents. But the other streamer explains that there are some clues about this secret group. Revealing the group, they are specialists who handle secret and dangerous missions. With this revelation, the chat is shocked and wonders how he knew about it. Then the streamers discuss if this is a new route within the game system. Back in the room, the leader realizes he's heard some strange rumors about it. Feeling the pressure, the leader asks if this is some kind of direct threat, but he explains it so they don't involve the agency in his next moves. Considering the proposal, the leader decides it's better to keep him close for now. So he hands him a symbol and tells him to show it to Agent Hannah. Seeing the symbol, the people in chat start suspecting Hannah is an agent. Accepting the request, the leader warns him about the responsibility of the new position. Meanwhile, in another room, Agent Hannah holds the symbol and calls him Junior. In the operations room, she says she was already expecting his arrival. When he asks about the agents, she reveals there are only 4 in total, including him. Then she warns him that she will remove him if he's consumed by vengeance. At the table, she explains that his opponents will be hired by enemy corporations. Seeing the explanation, the chat comments on how this is a pretty extreme job. Right after, she ends the discussion and hands him his first official mission. Taking the file, he sees a picture of the man who betrayed him before. Then she reveals that his death was faked to look like a simple suicide. Realizing the plot, he decides he'll use this clue to investigate everything. Turning the paper over, she shows him a photo of the only suspect identified so far. Trusting him, she says she'll just observe his personal investigation from a distance. Changing scenes, a TV news report talks about the suspect's movements. Watching the news, a man complains that the idiots can't catch the culprit. But suddenly, a masked figure quickly appears right behind the lone man. With no chance to react, he's taken down and pinned by the intruder's surprise attack. With the man on the ground, he lays down the one and only rule. Then he pressures him, warning that he's going to ask questions and the man must answer everything. But under the pressure, the man screams in pain and gives in, agreeing to talk. Seeing this, the chat comments on his infiltration and intimidation skills. Starting the interrogation, he asks if the man knows the people on the list. Begging for his life, he insists he's not lying about not knowing. With the negative answer, the masked man tightens his grip on his neck. Shortly after, he grabs an object and knocks the man out with one blow. Approaching him, she's surprised he didn't finish him off. Hearing her comment, the people in chat also thought he would finish him off there. Taking off his mask, he questions why he was put through that test. Praising his perception, she reveals that the grounds for suspicion were too weak. Then he explains that he used random names so he couldn't be traced later. Realizing the strategy, the chat praises his intelligence for advancing the story. With the test passed, she congratulates him and tells him not to worry anymore. With the test finished, she calls him to go after the real target. Arriving at the house, she says he was the last one to speak with the victim. As he gets closer, he smells a strong scent and realizes it's blood. With the smell in the air, they prepare to enter the place carefully. Inside, they are faced with the scene and a body lying on the floor. Seeing the scene, the chat is shocked and wonders what is happening. Analyzing the body, he says the culprit couldn't have gone far. Suddenly, he turns around, sensing a presence rapidly approaching them. At that, he moves away and scans the area where the noise came from. Without warning, the door opens and a blond man suddenly appears. Surprised by the intrusion, the man prepares an ice attack, but he charges forward and lands a blow that sends the man flying. From the impact of the blow, the man smashes through the wall and lands outside. At this, the people in chat comment on the player's strength and speed. Seeing the man on the ground, he decides he'll interrogate him for answers. Leaving the interrogation to her, he starts searching the whole house for clues. Then, she grabs the man's face and uses a strange energy on him. Beginning the interrogation, she pressures him to get the answers she needs now. Meanwhile, he walks through the house looking for any other clues to the crime. While walking around, he notices something strange about a section of the floor. Knocking on the floor, he notes that the sound is different only in that small area. Right after, he breaks the floorboards and reveals a secret compartment hidden there. Inside the hole, he finds a black book that was hidden from everyone. Opening the book, he comes across a list with several names written on it. Seeing the list, the chat starts to speculate what that secret directory could be. Then, he recognizes the book as a ledger he saw in the other world before. At that moment, she finishes the interrogation and asks what he just found. Turning to her, he simply replies that it's some kind of record. Then, he reveals that the book contains records of a trafficking scheme. Confirming the information, she reveals the man confessed his connection to the scheme. Seeing the investigation, the streamers comment on his great deduction skills. Impressed with the deduction, the chat praises his combat and reasoning skills. Analyzing the scene, she concludes that the culprit eliminated him for a reason. Then, he asks about the whereabouts of the man who betrayed him in the story. Determined to continue, they investigate the transaction locations listed in the book. Using his phone, he finds a location that matches the hideout's description. With the new location, he decides he'll send the data to the team. As the plot progresses, the streamers get excited for the next part. At this point, they're eager to finally see the raid on the enemy base. Despite the excitement, the streamer is worried about the two of them going on this mission alone. But the chat trusts him and says that with Hannah, nothing is impossible. Trusting the protagonist, they prepare for the start of another major raid. Arriving at the location, they find a huge warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Observing the warehouse, they notice the security is heavily reinforced. Standing in front of the door, he realizes it's going to be tough to get in, but he decides to just break down the entrance with his own strength right now. Leaping into the air, he slams the ground and creates a massive shockwave. With the path clear, he calls his partner to raid the warehouse with him. Rushing inside, the guards notice the intrusion and try to stop them. Once inside, he faces a group of enemies that appears to fight. Dodging their blows, he counterattacks the guards with swift, precise movements. Then he grabs a guard and slams him to the ground. Meanwhile, his partner lands a powerful blow on one of the enemies. In another corner, she attends to a blindfolded hostage. Turning quickly, he lands a strike that breaks through an enemy's defense. Seeing the brutality, the streamers comment that he seems more bloodthirsty. At this, the chat also notes that he fights as if he has a personal grudge. Giving no quarter, he finishes the last guard with a devastating and precise strike. With everyone on the ground, he stops and takes a deep breath after the intense battle. Approaching him, she asks if that was the last of the enemies. Walking towards a door, he prepares for the final rescue. Inside, they find several unconscious people trapped in makeshift cells. Looking closer, they see men huddled together in a wooden cage. In another cage, a woman hugs another, showing the horror of the terrible situation. Then she says she'll free the women and asks him to save the men. Approaching the men's cage, he faces the victims who are terrified. Without wasting a second, he simply shatters the lock with a powerful kick. Opening the door, he tells everyone he's there to finally save them all. But one of the prisoners shouts, telling the others not to be fooled by him. Desperate, the man accuses the masked figure of planning to sell them to other people. At this, he lunges forward and grabs him angrily, blaming him for the whole situation. Clutching his clothes, the man continues to unload all his pent-up frustration. Taking off his mask, he simply offers a sincere apology for taking so long to arrive. With the apology, the man finally breaks down and starts to cry right there. Still in shock, the man asks if it's true they can leave. Thanking him profusely, he bows as a sign of respect and final relief. Then he guides all the men to the exit of that horrible captivity. Warning them to be careful, he helps the last group of hostages get out. But upon seeing one hostage, he stops and stares at him strangely. In that instant, he has a flashback of an old battle comrade dying. Suddenly, he grabs the man's arm and calls him by another name. Not understanding a thing, he apologizes and says he mistook him for someone. Thinking about what happened, he remembers the resemblance to his old friend. Remembering the conversation, he wonders what happened to his companions. Then he realizes he looked for them, but couldn't find any of them in the game. He questions if his friends don't exist in this new world he's in now. Then he sees images of each of his former teammates, but he remembers that the other game characters are all there as usual. Snapping out of his thoughts, his partner calls him to go up and continue the mission. Given the situation, he realizes he needs to find out the real reason for everything. Leading the hostages, he suddenly stops and tells everyone to wait a second. With his eyes glowing, he warns everyone that they are now completely surrounded. Then he reveals that the place is surrounded by enemies on all sides. With the ambush, the chat comments that his story is never normal. Sensing the energy, she says she recognizes that presence from somewhere familiar. At this, the hostages panic and wonder what's happening, but he just turns and assures them he'll get everyone out safely. Outside, several men in suits approach the abandoned warehouse. Advancing through the woods, the men prepare for a major raid on the location. Then they spot the group and rush to attack them all at once. Seeing the men, he punches a hole in the wall and tells everyone to wait. Soon after, a huge battle breaks out between the two groups in the warehouse yard. In the midst of the chaos, the chat is impressed by the new enemy's powers. On the roof, a loud noise catches everyone's attention during the fight. Looking at the enemies, one of them prepares to use a special item. Without a second thought, the man in the suit swallows a mysterious pill on the spot. With the pill in his mouth, he just swallows it down in one quick gulp. Then he raises his head and faces the two of them as a new power emerges. Suddenly, the men in suits are enveloped by a dark and sinister energy. With this new power, he switches to Plan B and prepares an attack. Then he hits the ground and unleashes an area of effect electric attack. Right after, the energy explodes, creating a large smoke screen. In the middle of the smoke, he wonders where all the enemies went. Hearing a scream, he turns and sees that the hostages have been taken. Back inside, the men are using the hostages as shields to protect themselves. At this, the man attacks his partner and throws her to the ground with a single blow. Seizing the chance, one of them attacks his partner, but he defends with a blow. With the situation complicated, one of the enemies prepares to eliminate the hostages, but the enemy's blow is stopped by a mysterious hand that suddenly appears. Then it's revealed that the men are agents from the Dimensional Administration Agency. Unleashing his full fury, the enemy agent releases a massive amount of stored power. Firing his energy, he charges at the team that was trying to surround him. Just then, Baek Woo-hyun suddenly appears and lands a powerful blow right on his face. Right after, he spins in the air and continues the attack with another strong hit. Hurled violently, the man slams into the wall as Kim Hana appears below him. Upon seeing her arrival, the agent on the ground is left completely stunned. Seizing the opportunity, Hana concentrates her own energy in her hands and prepares to attack. Then, she rushes forward and delivers a sequence of blows to the opponent's chest. Finishing the combo, she lands a final powerful attack that throws the enemy back. Fallen on the ground, the man can only watch as Hana dissipates the rest of her energy. Changing scenes, a commentator excitedly remarks on the team's victory in the match, but Jong Ne-eon, next to him, notices a strange detail in the defeated enemy's words. At this, the stream's chat starts speculating about what that could mean for the future. Back in the arena, a massive explosion sends all the other competitors flying. In the midst of it all, Woo-hyun gets up, injured, and tries to see if his teammate is okay. Looking to the side, Woo-hyun calmly replies that he wasn't hurt in the attack. Turning to the victims, he announces that the danger is finally over and everyone can relax. Then, he asks Hana what the enemy meant by the word, traitors. Pointing at the agent's face, she says, he looks like other enemies. Hearing this, Woo-hyun remembers that the drug they used was the same one. Worried, Hana puts a hand on her head, thinking about the number of infiltrated spies. Next, she says she'll call for transport to rescue all the victims there. Meanwhile, on the stream, the chat grows concerned about the agency's current situation. Back in the studio, the commentators discuss the spy's audacity in acting so openly. Proposing a theory, one of the girls explains that this is a reaction to their actions. In the chat, all the viewers seem to agree that the theory really makes a lot of sense. Then, Nayeon gets ready to announce the next mission, but a notification pops up on the screen. Suddenly, a huge donation from Anonymous Viewer 62 appears with a mysterious message. Seeing the message, she quickly alerts Woo-hyun and sends its contents to him in the game. Receiving the alert, he starts reading the message, trying to understand its meaning. Saying she'll return to the agency, Hana sees that Woo-hyun has other matters to attend to. At the same time, the stream's chat gets curious about the player's secret plans. Soon after, now as his avatar, he walks through a dark and completely destroyed alley. Upon seeing the scene, the chat recognizes the path to the secret item shop. Then, he understands the mysterious message was a code for them to meet there. Stopping in front of a door, a security camera activates and watches him closely. Next, a mysterious figure comes down the stairs, saying they were waiting for him. Revealing itself, a teddy bear asks about the missions he accepted from the shop. The bear then asks what he found out about the Reverse Worlds laboratory. Before answering, Hejikal wants to know what he'll get for that new information. Seeing the amount, the viewers on the stream are shocked by the offered reward. Remembering the promised gift, he asks disdainfully if that was all the offer was. Because of this, the bear reveals that a group of people really wants to meet him in person. Hejikal is completely shocked to hear who the people looking for him now are. At this, the bear says it will tell him the rest after hearing everything he knows. Beginning to explain, he says he found all the researchers already dead at the site. He reveals that the monster was an intruder with an appearance identical to his. Hearing that, the bear desperately asks if he managed to defeat the mysterious creature. But he couldn't because a demon lord appeared and destroyed the entire reverse world. Understanding everything, the bear realizes they were using test subjects in their research with demons. So, the bear asks for some proof, no matter how small, of what he saw. At this, the stream's chat remembers that he took a sample from the secret lab. Remembering the sample, he thinks that the agency will really need that substance now. However, with so many traitors, he realizes the agency is no longer a safe place. Making a decision, he decides to hand over the sample to the bear and its organization. But he warns that if they abuse that power, he will hunt them all down himself. Feeling the pressure, the hooded figure agrees to the terms and accepts his proposal. Resolving the situation, he approaches the counter to hand over the sample he obtained. Before leaving, he asks why that group wants to meet him so badly. The bear then says he'll find out when he meets them, and asks if he will go. Without much hesitation, Hejekiel finally agrees to meet with the mysterious group. Next, the bear hands over the reward and a cell phone for them to communicate. Taking the device, he remembers the gift that anonymous viewer had promised before. Meanwhile, the streamers get excited about the unique turns the story is taking. In the chat, the viewers begin to speculate whether the group will be allies or enemies. Leaving the shop, Hejekiel receives a notification and stops in the street to read the message. Seeing the address, he decides to go to the location to find out who they are. Arriving there, he walks towards an abandoned factory in an industrial district. Entering the place, he senses the presence of someone standing there to his right. But suddenly, an attack comes from the left and he blocks it on reflex. From the blow, the blade falls to the ground and he asks about this welcome. Coming out of the shadows, a figure says they have a habit of catching people off guard. Upon seeing his face, Hejekiel is completely shocked and speechless. Recognizing the voice, he remembers the one who was once his teammate. Going back in time, he recalls the many battles they faced together. Remembering his teammate, he sees him supporting him to keep going even while injured. Back in the present, Hejekiel recognizes the face of his old friend, Kim Young-joon. When he asks how he's there, the man stares at him, confused, not recognizing him. Going back in time, a memory shows the same man inviting him to his organization. Then, at another time, he was teaching him how to use a blade in a training session. In the present, the man repeats the phrase, saying that only they understand the pain. Realizing the connection, he is shocked by the mysteries that link the worlds. Remembering his research, he found no one with that name in the new world. Then, a dark voice emerges in his mind, accusing him of having abandoned everyone. Surrounded by figures, the dark shapes call him a coward for running away. Soon after, several faces appear and call him a traitor for leaving. Among them, a woman stands out, asking him not to leave them behind. Struck by the memory, he sees himself huddled and traumatized in the corner of the room. Completely overwhelmed by guilt, he can only apologize quietly to himself. Then, he confesses that he was the only one who escaped, leaving his friend confused. On the stream, the chat is confused by the player's immersive reaction to the scene. Noticing his state, Young-joon grabs him firmly to bring him back to reality, telling him to calm down. The man says that everything is okay now. At that moment, a memory emerges, showing him trying to save his younger self from something. Coming to his senses, he realizes he was lost in his own painful memories. Seeing the scene, Young-joon confirms he's a former test subject like the others. So, Hejekiel asks who the leader of that secret organization that found him is. With a smile, he invites him to join their group to meet him. At that moment, he remembers a traitor who caused everyone's death. Fearing it will all happen again, he sees the same tragedy from his past. That's why he asks how he can find this leader as quickly as possible. Suspicious of the question, Young-joon stares at him, trying to understand his true intentions. He then questions if Hejekiel thinks he can deceive someone like the leader. Suddenly, his phone rings in his pocket, and he turns to answer the call. Answering the call, he starts listening to what the other person is saying, but he's shocked to learn they sent a rookie on a mission alone. Worried, he says he's heading to the location and quickly hangs up the phone. When he tries to leave, Hejekiel stops him, saying the meeting won't wait. Offering to help, a new rescue mission appears on his game screen. Arriving at the location, they find a bar that serves as a front for illegal experiments. As they go down the stairs, Young-joon confirms the place is just a base of operations. From upstairs, he explains that a team member got trapped trying to infiltrate alone. Planning the attack, he says he'll go in from the front while Hejekiel attacks from the rear. Then, the two of them jump toward the building and begin their silent infiltration. Moving through the shadows, Young-joon readies his blade to attack the first guards in his path. With great speed, he bursts into the room and lands several blows on all the guards. Seeing this, one of the researchers panics and orders an immediate retreat. But before he can escape, Young Jun appears from behind and strikes him. Right after, he finishes off the man on the ground with another swift attack. Meanwhile, Hijekal prepares to attack the enemies in the other room. Unleashing his energy, he fires a single blow that destroys all the robots at once. On the stream, everyone is impressed by the duo's perfect synergy during combat. After clearing the room, Young Jun praises Hijekal's direct combat skills. Pointing the way, he warns that the hostage isn't there and they need to keep moving. Inside the building, they reach a room full of lined-up metal lockers. Trapped in one of them, the young hostage panics, not knowing what to do. Hearing a noise outside, he approaches the door to try and peek. Sensing a threat, he prepares an energy attack to defend himself against whoever comes. But upon opening the door, Hijekal finds the boy, who attacks him by mistake. Right after, Young Jun grabs him and starts scolding him for his recklessness. Pinching his cheeks, he reprimands him for almost getting caught by the enemy. Going back in time, Hijekal remembers when the boy was introduced to the team. Back then, the young boy followed him everywhere with great admiration. But he also remembers that, in the future, that same man ends his life. Back in the present, Young Jun warns that the leader is coming, and the boy panics. Before fleeing, he quickly thanks Hijekal for saving his life. As the boy runs away, Hijekal promises himself he won't let him die. Then, Young Jun turns and asks if he still wants to meet the mysterious leader. Changing scenes, a mysterious figure was waiting for him atop a nearby building. Introducing himself, the organization's leader walks toward them with his other subordinates. In the chat, the viewers are impressed by the imposing presence of the new mysterious character. Thanking them for the rescue, the leader completes the mission that was previously started in the game. Meanwhile, Hijekal clenches his fist tightly, trying to control himself in front of the traitor. Using a fake name, he introduces himself to the leader, hiding his true identity. Realizing the blunder, Young Jun also introduces himself in a very cheerful and relaxed way. At this, the leader lightly scolds him for not introducing himself before the mission. Hugging Hijekal, Young Jun says they're already like brothers in arms after all that. He then comments that he feels a strange familiarity, as if he's known him before. Hearing this, the leader says that everyone in the organization suffered in labs just like him. He then mentions the boy they saved, and Young Jun himself as example. Placing a hand on his chest, he also includes himself among the system's victims. Right after, he explains that no one can defeat the corporate alliance alone. Extending a hand, he invites Hijekal to join their organization. Analyzing the offer, he wonders why the leader betrayed them in the past. Remembering the past, he recalls that the leader always risked his life for everyone. In his memories, things only got strange after a year in the organization. Believing he can change the future, he finally shakes the leader's hand and accepts the offer. With that, the leader welcomes him to the organization called Vengeance. On the stream, Nayeon realizes he'll now have two in-game identities to manage. Getting very excited, the commentators prepare to end the stream for the day. Meanwhile, the chat complains that there won't be any more content and says goodbye to the streamers. Saying goodbye to the viewers, they finally end the live stream and promise to be back soon. Changing scenes, he receives a collaboration request while having coffee with Nayeon. Sitting with him, Nayeon explains there will be an auction before the game's main event. So, she excitedly invites him to a joint stream to watch the event. Then, she explains the plan to do a trio stream with another famous female streamer. Thinking about the raid, he realizes he needs 5 more very strong players to participate. As he thinks about it, he sees the auction as an opportunity to find new allies. Making his decision, he finally accepts the invitation, surprising his friend with his answer. Celebrating his answer, Nayeon excitedly pulls him along to go get something to eat. As they walk down the street together, she suggests the same restaurant they went to last time. In the distance, a woman just stands there, watching the two of them walk away down the sidewalk. Scene change, a single light flickers in a dark, abandoned hallway. Inside, Woo-hyun kneels beside an injured woman on the floor. With an empty gaze, she asks him to get revenge for everything that happened. Then, dark voices surround him, telling him to finish them all. Consumed by despair, he screams as he tries to cover his face. Suddenly, he wakes up in his bed, panting and terrified by the nightmare. Sitting up, he realizes he's been dreaming of that world every night. With a hand on his head, He grieves as he remembers the woman's name. Going back in time, he recalls she was the first to reach out her hand. Upon finding him, the woman calmly asks if he's feeling all right, but he reacts aggressively, slapping away the hand she offered. The impact sends her to the floor, surprising everyone in the lab. Awkwardly, he tries to apologize for reacting that way to her. Still on the floor, she takes his hand and says it's okay. In that moment, he realizes she was the only person he loved. Remembering the past, he saw Suwa crying for him while he was badly injured. At that, he promised her he would find a way for them to get out of that hell. Holding hands, she asked if they would ever be able to escape that place. Looking at her, he promised he'd find a way to get them out of there together. But in the end, he couldn't keep his promise and watched her get tortured. Tied to a chair, she said she couldn't take the suffering anymore. With tears in her eyes, she only managed to apologize before her last breath. Then, he lamented not being able to protect her in the end. Thinking of young June, he wondered if Su-ah was also in that game. But he remembered they all died before he even managed to escape the lab. Clutching the sheets tightly, he decides he needs to see it all with his own eyes. Just then, a message pops up on his phone, a reminder of today's special auction stream. Determined, he focuses on what he can do now and prepares for the future. Scene change. Nayeon starts the stream and greets all her viewers in the chat. Then, she announces the auction and the arrival of two very special guests. Introducing her guests, Nayeon calls Baek Woo-hyun and streamer Kim Sol to the couch. In the chat, viewers react with surprise seeing the two streamers together on the stream. Just then, a donation pops up on screen, making a joke about the situation between the guests. Seeing the chat continue, Nayeon gets annoyed and threatens to ban anyone who persists. Then, she explains that Woo-hyun will be the coach, while the other streamer will play in the tournament. Next, the three of them turn to the big screen to see the team compositions. Appearing on stage, the auction's host welcomes the entire audience. Right after, he starts explaining the auction rules to the team leaders. Showing the tiers, he warns that point allocation will be essential for victory. When asked about the favorites, all the team leaders mention the same player. In the chat, the audience speculates her popularity comes from her connection to Hejikal. Because of this, the host decides to start the auction with the most sought-after player. Hearing the announcement, Kim Sol gets nervous and braces herself for the start of the auction. At this, the chat starts discussing if the leaders will spend all their points on her. But suddenly, all the team leaders bet everything they have on the same player. In the chat, the audience laughs at the situation and comments on how much everyone values the coach. Shocked by the bet, the streamers are left confused about the tiebreaker criteria. Then, the host explains that the winner will be whoever pressed the button first. Celebrating wildly, the leader of Team Redog shouts with joy after winning the auction. But a leader says it's fine as he already got the player he wanted. Seeing his excitement, the chat comments on the risk of that betting strategy. Right after, the auction continues to pick the other members for the remaining teams. At the end of the stream, the screen shows the final composition of the 4 teams. A few days later, Woo-hyun arrives at the training center for the first meeting. There, Kim Sol finds him and asks if he received the captain's invitation. Remembering the messages, he thinks the captain is a very eccentric and slightly weird guy. Moving on, the two walk together to meet the rest of the team there. Arriving in the room, they find the captain welcoming them in an unusual way. Seeing his strength, Woo-hyun is impressed by his body control without any buffs. Realizing his potential, he believes the captain would be a great help in the raid. Excited, the captain kneels on the floor and welcomes the new coach. Next, he starts introducing all the other team members to Woo-hyun. Showing the summary, he reveals the team's full lineup with their respective ranks. Seeing the 2 bronze players, he decides he'll need to train them all rigorously. At this, the stream's chat doubts the team's ability to win the tournament. Full of energy, the captain asks if they can start training immediately. Without wasting time, Woo-hyun agrees and gets ready to start the first training session. Starting the training, he lands a blow on one of the members to test their endurance. Scene change. A person clicks their mouse to open a video online. At that, the screen shows an intense fight between Hejikal and a great demon lord. Sitting in his chair, a man with green hair watches the fight intently. Remembering the invitation, he rethinks the idea of participating in the new raid. With a smile on his face, he seems to have a plan in mind to join. Then, he starts typing quickly on his keyboard to send a mysterious message. In the message, he proposes a bet to decide if he'll join the raid team. Reaching the cup finals, Team All-In starts the match aggressively. Charging forward, Kang Soyeol lands a quick blow on her first opponent. Immediately after, Redog seizes the opening and lands a devastating blow on the enemy. Watching the play, Naeon gets excited by the team's incredible performance, but the real standouts are the lower ELO players, surprising everyone. Not backing down, they face the gold ELO players with great confidence and skill. In that same instant, the match finally ends with the team's crushing victory. With an undefeated streak, Team All-In takes home the championship's grand prize. Seeing the result, Naeon can't believe they actually managed to win the tournament. Remembering their training, the result was expected after so much dedication and effort. With the match over, he gets up to go to the meeting room. Scene change, a camera system is set up for a new live stream. Suddenly, Naeon appears and greets all the viewers who've joined the stream. She explains that she started the stream for a special match. Hearing this, the chat grows curious about the match. At that moment, a donation appears in the chat, asking about the opponent in the special match. With a smile, Naeon announces the big opponent for today's match. Cutting to the arena, a man was anxiously awaiting his opponent's arrival. Pro player battler emerges, greeting Hijikal to start the match. Reviewing the message, Naeon explains it was all a bet for a spot in the raid. With a taunting tone, battler says he recently broke his win streak record. He then reveals he tried to find him many times, but could never get matched up. He also reveals he was the mysterious player who challenged him before. Full of confidence, he invites him to a real fight, no more messing around. Woo Hyun then asks if he will join the raid if he loses today's match. With a smile, he confirms he's already arranged everything with his agency to join. Scene change, the two appear in the battle arena as the confrontation begins. In the arena, battler reveals his Sea God build, which he uses outside of the league. Staring down his opponent, he's thrilled to finally have a real fight. Then, the two prepare for the clash, their gazes filled with determination. As the first round begins, battler immediately launches a water barrier at him. But Hijikal charges forward fearlessly, slicing through the wave of water with his sword. Mid-attack, he glares at his opponent with a determined look. Moving in quickly, he closes in on his rival and prepares another attack. Hijikal then stomps hard on the ground, shattering the frozen water's surface. Using the momentum, he strikes with his sword, and battler parries with a blow of his own. From the impact, Hijikal is thrown back, but he recovers in mid-air. Immediately after, battler leaps into the air to follow up with an aerial attack. Countering, Hijikal creates an ice wall that throws them both back. As he lands, he slides across the frozen surface, preparing for his next move. In the middle of the arena, the two face off, the ground completely destroyed by their battle. Watching the action, Naeon is impressed by the level of their fight. Meanwhile, in the chat, the viewers comment on the player's creativity in the match. Realizing his rival's strength, battler gathers more energy for his next attack. Then, he unleashes several water projectiles at Hijikal with full force. With a barrage of attacks, battler unleashes a huge volume of water, pressuring Hijikal in the arena. In the chat, the viewers are impressed that he can dodge all the attacks. While dodging, Hijikal admits he's surprised by his opponent's strength. Even with a low buff, he's impressed by the player's control and power. Parrying the projectiles, he never imagined someone could get this strong in this world. Determined to end the fight, battler summons a giant creature made of water. With a battle cry, he unleashes the massive water dragon at Hijikal. Seeing this, the viewers despair at the sheer size and power of the attack. Unintimidated, Hijikal charges forward and blocks the attack with his ice sword. But suddenly, he realizes something strange is happening to his opponent. Then, the water dragon dissolves in the air before landing the final blow. Confused, battler watches the scene, not understanding what happened to his attack. With a smirk, he reveals the first attack was just a distraction. Then, he clenches his fist tightly and prepares for his real attack. Next, an even bigger water dragon emerges from the depths to attack Hijikal. Analyzing the attack, Hijikal figures out his opponent's strategy and prepares himself. He understands that the first attack was just a feint to trick him in the fight. With a smile, he admits that his opponent is a truly insane player. Seeing his potential, Hijikal decides he needs to bring that player to his raid. Charging at the dragon, He prepares his sword for a single powerful strike. In a swift move, he passes through the dragon and hits Battler square in the shoulder. From the blow, Battler falls to his knees, ending the match in his defeat. With the fight over, Hijikal approaches his opponent, who acknowledges his defeat. Wounded on the ground, Battler finally agrees to join the new raid team. With the match over, the two shake hands and seal the deal in the arena. Hyped up, Nayeon says goodbye to the audience and enthusiastically ends the stream. Scene change, an empty energy drink can rolls across an office floor. Sitting in her chair, a woman looks exhausted after another day of work. In her mind, she lamented being unable to find any information in the data. Worried, she wonders what's going on with so many strange events in the game. Suddenly, her computer screen starts to flicker with strange glitches. Then, the image of Isaac Goodman appears on the monitor and greets her cheerfully. Annoyed by his appearance, she stands up and questions him about his secret plans. Ignoring her questions, he says he can't give many details about where he is now. Realizing his stubbornness, she knows she won't get any clear answers from him. So, she asks why he's showing up now after such a long time with no contact. Confused by his answer, she tries to understand what this so-called perfect world is. Next, he explains that the game world is only half of the original. Hearing this, she panics at the possibility he's suggesting. Confirming her suspicion, he reveals that a place with many lords will be open. With a smile, Isaac finally announces that the other world is about to arrive. At that moment, a dark portal opens and the chains around it break. Scene change, Abraxas seems to feel that the great turning point has finally arrived. Facing a giant demon, he confirms that all the preparations are finally ready. Days after the broadcast, Baek Woo-hyun was walking around, checking a message on his phone. He gets a notification and sees that Kim Hana has summoned him for a new mission. Meanwhile, the streamers are commenting on the start of another major live mission. Reading the message, Baek Woo-hyun gets ready to meet his partner and start the assignment. Arriving at the arranged parking lot, he spots Kim Hana waiting next to a black van. The two exchange a quick greeting before discussing their next steps. Getting straight to the point, he asks her what their new mission is. Flashing back, she recalls the traitors they faced together in the warehouse. Continuing her explanation, she reveals she investigated their accomplices and found a new lead. Baek Woo-hyun listens intently as she tells him about the discovery of a possible secret dimensional portal. Cutting to a new scene, the streamers realize that all the events are finally connecting. Hearing about invaders, he remembers the doppelganger he encountered on the last mission. Without wasting any time, they decide to go to the location to investigate the situation themselves. Driving to a residential area, the two arrive at the location her investigation pointed to. On top of a building, they observe the perfect hiding spot for the so-called portal. Scanning the area, Kim Hana notices 3 elite guards positioned at the entrance. Baek Woo-hyun then prepares to infiltrate the location stealthily. Leaping from the rooftop, the two partners quickly descend toward the dark alley. Hearing a noise, one of the guards turns around suspiciously. Seeing only a cat, the man prepares to attack the animal for no reason. But before he can act, Baek Woo-hyun appears and grabs his hand from behind. He then covers the guard's mouth so no one can hear the noise. Taking advantage of the distraction, Kim Hana moves in on the other 2 guards who turned around. With a spinning kick, she manages to take down both enemies at once. After the fight, their opponents are on the ground, completely defeated by the duo. Finishing the fight, Baek Woo-hyun lands a direct blow to his opponent's face. Meanwhile, Kim Hana also strikes the last guard with a precise hit. With the path clear, they advance together and break down the large metal door. Upon entering, the duo finally finds the giant dimensional portal they were searching for. Then, Kim Hana asks if he's ready to enter the unknown place. Confident, Kim Hana agrees and prepares to enter the portal with her partner. Right after, they dive headfirst together into the mysterious purple dimensional portal. Coming out on the other side, they find a terrible scene with several bodies on the ground. In the broadcast chat, everyone is shocked by the carnage on their screens. Among the dead, they notice that one of the researchers is still breathing. Immediately, Kim Hana grabs the survivor by the collar and demands answers about the place. Seeing the man wasn't talking, she presses on his wound to force a confession. In great pain, the researcher begins to confess that they drilled a hole there. Hearing this, the duo is in complete shock at the terrible, unexpected revelation. Cutting to a new scene, the streamers understand they've created a permanent bridge between worlds. In that instant, the viewers react with panic to the madness being broadcast. Furious, she demands to know the hole's location, but the man dies before he can answer. Unable to get more answers, she drops the man's lifeless body to the ground. Then, Baek Woo-hyun calls out to her, so they can start searching for the hole. Suddenly, they both look up and see something giant emerging in the sky. Meanwhile, everyone in the broadcast chat reacts, completely terrified by the appearance. Seeing the creature, Baek Woo-hyun runs toward it to begin his attack. Getting closer, he comes face to face with the giant monster and its glowing chest. Back on the stream, Young Naeon realizes the hole is inside the monster. Beside her, the other streamer is totally shocked by the unbelievable revelation. At that, the chat comments that the dimensional hole is the creature's core. Trying to act, Kim Hana runs to help, but a mysterious voice tells them to stop. Suddenly, the doppelganger appears before them and announces that the connection is complete. Ignoring the warning, Baek Woo-hyun suggests they kill the monster to close the portal. With a smirk, the villain explains that his plan can no longer be stopped. Hearing that, Baek Woo-hyun finally understands that this was all part of Isaac's plan. Flashing back, he remembers Isaac's ambition to create a new world. Right after, Kim Hana gets ready to fight, saying she knows what to do. In that same instant, a powerful energy blast is launched toward the villain. Charging forward with everything she's got, she declares the doppelganger is the real enemy to be defeated. Looking up, Kim Hana is completely paralyzed by the size of the enormous creature. Then, the doppelganger invites them to the new world before making his move. Hearing this, the two partners are left speechless by the unexpected invitation. Right after, the villain simply jumps into the hole in the monster's chest. As he enters, the creature starts to lose control and releases a wave of energy. The dark energy hits and pierces through the bodies of the two agents on site. Seeing the danger, she yells that they need to fall back as the portal begins to crack. Just then, the monster unleashes an energy blast as the duo starts to run for their lives. In that same instant, a gigantic explosion of energy consumes the entire surrounding area. After the smoke clears, Kim Hana gets up and goes to check on Baek Woo-hyun. Looking around, they realize the dimensional world was completely destroyed by the explosion. Meanwhile, the viewers comment that even the previously defeated guards were hit. Analyzing the debris, she notices the bodies were annihilated by the monster's power. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she takes out her phone to report everything to Captain Kim Chul. A short time later, the captain and his team arrive on site to assess the destruction. After hearing the report, Kim Chul officially declares an invasion against the monster. At that same moment, a system notification announces that the Great Invasion has begun. But right after, another notice announces a server maintenance in 5 minutes. Seeing the announcements, the streamers and the chat celebrate the start of the epic event. Meanwhile, Baek Woo-hyun braces himself for the battle that's about to begin. Suddenly, Anonymous Viewer 62 makes a very generous donation. Appearing on screen, Isaac Goodman watches everything with a very smug look on his face. On the other side, Baek Woo-hyun feels that something big is about to happen. At the same moment, a second mysterious donation appears on screen for everyone to see. Changing scenes, two girls are chatting calmly inside a bustling coffee shop. Showing her phone, one of them reveals she's watching the live broadcast. Right after, she asks her friend if she knows a guy named Baek Woo-hyun. Hearing the name, the other girl's expression turns very serious.